Good evening, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the nose. Welcome to all the members in the gallery, as well as to members of council. Welcome back to one of our last 3 meetings of this term. I hope everybody had a great summer, relaxing, got some sun, whatever sun we actually had. So to begin things, I would like to look for an adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda as presented for tonight? Councillor McFadden, thank you. All in favor? Thank you, voted unanimously. Now I'm looking for adoption of the previous minutes. So those are the minutes of the July 7th Committee of the Whole meeting. As attached, I would like to see who would like to make that motion. Councillor McFadden.
I so move.
Thank you. All in favor? Voted unanimously. So first up, we have a couple of delegations this evening on our agenda, and the first one is from the Cochrane Library Board. I would like to call Chuck Love, Vice Chair, and Melissa Legacy, Library Director, to the podium to begin their presentation. Good evening.
Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? I'll just say good. I'm Chuck Love. I'm the Vice Chair of the Cochrane Library Board. I'm going to start with gratitude. So I want to thank each and every one of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And yes, thank you all of you as well for everything that you have done to support our library. I hope this is hopefully the fun delegation that is here tonight. But again, I want to thank you for the funding.
Excuse me, Mr. Love, can you just approach the podium so
Sure.
we have you on? There we go, thank you.
I've got a loud voice, so I'm not sure if I'm going to.
Now the people at home can hear your great presentation.
Okay, perfect. So again, thank you for your continued support. I'm not sure, do I go next slide here? Oh, well. Okay. There we go. So again, thank you for the funding. We've expanded programming events that promote inclusion and activities that engage all ages and walks of life. So again, we have new parent nights as well as teen movie nights and newcomer events throughout the time. We've also increased our staffing thanks to your support, as well as increased use, as well as our anniversary events. So for, not quite yet, but for our 75th year, so this is our 75th year here at the library, and it's more than just a place to get books. It is a gathering place. It is a learning hub and a second home to many, and that includes myself. We, of course, appreciate the support you have provided in 2025. However, of course, our demand for services has increased along with our growing membership numbers. We do not expect the town to be the only source of our increased funds. As of September 2025, we have exceeded our fundraising budget by a large margin, mostly due to a large ethno-cultural grant that we received this year. In 2026, we will continue our commitment to collaboration with a planned budget increase to our own fundraising, sponsorship, and grant-seeking efforts. Your continued input and support will be needed as the feasibility study moves forward. Of course, the survey has put that through as well. Our growing community needs your continued advocacy and commitment to literacy, equality, and education. So again, thank you. So the other reason, of course, to be here today is to showcase our new leadership at the site. So we have Melissa here. I'll do a little bit of an introduction. As you can see from the slide, she has actually worked across Canada, north, south, east, and west. She has chosen us to be that next course of her journey. She has been involved in 15, so that is 15, previous library renovation and new building projects. So comes with a vast variety of expertise with that, including certificates in municipal leadership, leading in foresight, and human-centered systems thinking. She holds, of course, a master's in library and information science from Western University. And again, Melissa has just started in March, but has completely immersed herself in the library, already starting with a 5-year plan for staffing moving forward. So moving on to the next slide. Our plan of service is, of course, started in 2024 to 2025. And we had 26 goals for that. We have already achieved 20 of those goals. Some of those are already on the slide themselves. We have 6 to go to complete in 2026, but we are on the mark to complete that. Within the ethnocultural grant, which I mentioned before, the library will be hosting partnered programs, such as 3 of which have already gone through: Weaving Connections, Indigenous Culture, History, and Healing, Métis Finger Weaving, Powwow 101, hide tanning demonstrations. You may have seen that at Discovery Days this weekend, as well as fireside chats with Wazin Ichinabi tea, as well as Indigenous art exhibits at the library itself. So again, we are on track to have that plan of service completed. So without further ado, these highlights show how we've responded to the community needs and planning for growth. To share more about the impact of these achievements and how increased staffing enhanced our services, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, of course.
Okay, hi Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us this evening. The increase in funds that was provided for 2025 allowed for an overall increase of 3 FTE to our staffing. If you recall from last year, we were at 14.5 FTE and we were able to increase that to 17.3 FTE. However, this still falls a little bit short of the recommended level, which is about 19.5 FTE for the population that we are serving. We were able to hire our outreach services manager, which was one of our goals of our plan of service. That person increased our FTE by 1, so we're very happy to welcome her. This position started in late August. We had the director vacancy in the first part of the year, and the recruitment was a bit delayed, but we're happy to welcome her now. We added a few other staff that are listed there. And so what does this mean for actual impact? It means we'd heard from the patrons when we did our patron satisfaction survey that sometimes they were waiting at the desk, waiting for staff when they were helping someone else. So with this increase in staffing, we now have 2 staff at the service desk at all times. And this has greatly increased customer satisfaction. And we also are processing materials faster thanks to the additional FTE. And we are returning, having the return materials back in stock for people to access quicker. So we've seen things returning quicker and being accessible quicker, as well as that increased service. The new outreach services manager is going to be out in the community doing outreach to our schools this fall, senior facilities, and participating in community partner events. This position released some of the outreach responsibilities currently falling to the assistant director and the programming team. So we'll be expanding our outreach as well. Being able to serve all areas of our community and work with our many community partners is a priority for the library, and providing exceptional customer service and engaging programs and events is something we're very proud of. In our 2024 patron engagement survey, 98% of patrons who responded said they were satisfied or very satisfied with the customer service they receive at the library. So this remarkable level of satisfaction isn't possible without our dedicated staff, and we greatly appreciate your investment in the people that provide those library services. So a few more metrics for you on impact. Libraries are part of Canadian culture, and they're a vital service to the towns and cities that they serve. Everyone is welcome at the library. In Canada, 56% of all Canadians use the library, and that is almost as many who use national parks at 58%. As a result of your investment last year, the library's growth is clear when you look at the numbers between January and July. So looking at the same period last year, we enjoyed an increase of circulation of 31%. So we're circulating roughly over 33,000 items per month. Program participation has increased by 26%, and we're seeing about 14,000 people participate in 632 programs so far this year. All of those programs are free, of course. And visits to the library increased by 6%, so we're seeing about 133,000 visits so far this year. We offer programs such as art therapy program, a newcomer support program, and job seeker success programs. The library continues to make a difference to the people who are in challenging situations or need a little support. As you can see, the numbers just keep going up, and that is what we want. We want the library to reflect a growing and thriving town. However, with growth comes growing pains. We anticipate membership, digital library use, and outreach to see increases to the end of 2025 as well. And as one of the respondents from the 2024 Patron Satisfaction Survey said, I very much love the variety of activities and resources that support the needs and wants of the community. This is in the form of toddlers playing and reading, people renting tools, programs such as Lego building, space for playing board games, free library cards, use of technology, etc. It is a welcoming place that has something for everyone. So current and future needs. So we secured funding for the facility needs assessment, as you know, and that kicked off in June of this year. And currently, the community engagement portion is underway. We greatly appreciate the collaboration and from the town and from council. Our current facility is just over 8,000 square feet, which is suitable for a population of around 10,000. So according to best practices for Alberta libraries with our current population, we should be in a facility of approximately 22,000 square feet. And with a growing population, of course, that need grows. This summer, we brought in porta potties due to the programs and events being over capacity at our facility. And while we are fortunate to have funding to bring this type of thing in, we see an increasing need for a larger facility to provide programs and events. Part of creating a growth strategy is for us to identify how staffing will increase year over year. And we are working on that. That is underway. We need to scale up incrementally, and we understand that. Some factors we must consider are the space constraints, so adding to our staff is not ideal with the current workspace at capacity. And increasing services requires more staff, which of course requires more space. In our 2024 patron survey, patrons said they would like more open hours, a larger facility, and more quiet spaces. Ultimately, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know or haven't already heard. We would love to provide more services and resources to the community in a facility that accommodates all types of use, shares space with key community partners, and inspires the residents of Cochrane. And finally, next steps. With the increased funding in 2025, we've been able to give back to the community in several ways, from programs to collections, as I've outlined, and providing a safe and welcoming community space. We appreciate your continued support. We've provided a one-page summary with some highlights and upcoming 75th anniversary events, and we hope you'll be able to celebrate with us as we wrap up another amazing year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and congratulations for your success over the past year. I will turn it over to council, and first up is, just stay up here for just a minute in case you have any questions, to Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Federico. Just begin with a comment and then a question. Congratulations on and echoing Councillor Federico's comments, our Deputy Mayor Federico. I mean, in terms of return on investment, this has really been a good news story. My question has to do with your strategic plan, and perhaps this is a flash to blinding obvious with someone with your wealth of experience in building new facilities. But in building a new facility, I mean, in that this facility will probably last a decade or at least beyond my lifetime, I hope. What does a library in 10 or 20 years, or 10 or 15 or 20 years look like as compared to today? I mean, if I think back of what a library was when I was a child and what it is today, there's a stark difference. And how do you avoid then offering social programs that might otherwise be offered by other like organizations in the community, or even perhaps even better organizations in terms of community offering those? So I'm just curious, based on your experience, where or what you see this strategic plan being in terms of being able to predict what you need in the way of a building for the future.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd love to be able to predict it really accurately, but the best that we can do is look to what we see the trends are, where we see the need is, and then creating that flexible space. It's all about the flexibility to adapt to the things that change as things evolve in communities and society. So being able to change the use of a space, create different zones that can be changed. It's all about having things that are flexible because we can't anticipate all of the changes. And so some of the best library spaces are those that adapt as their community grows, as their community changes, and they're able to change the space. So making sure that you have enough space, and that comes, there's a lot of formulas for doing that we can predict a little bit, but beyond the size of the space, we need to be responding to the community and having the ability to be adaptable and flexible for that.
I could ask a supplemental question.
We'll definitely celebrate 100 years. That's only 25 years away.
Yeah.
I know that I'm only saying only, but the need will always be there.
If I could ask a supplemental question, then one is, I'm not sure that the formula of rep by pop is necessarily the appropriate one for this type of facility, but the supplemental question had to do with, have you ever thought of combining facilities? I noticed in the city of Calgary now, they're looking at putting two types of needs together in terms of a go-forward type of facility, so that it just isn't a library, or it just isn't a fire hall, or it just isn't a seniors complex. They look to combine those services. And does that make any, in your experience, does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I actually was at Calgary Public Library prior to coming here and worked on 3 building projects that were combined use facilities that the city was building. And yeah, maximizing that space. And your previous question about partnerships, there are lots of partnerships that we have, and our partners in the community want to use the space that's available. So there's lots of great partnerships that Calgary Public Library does with social services and outreach for jobs, and partnering with community colleges and things like that. So all of those things can be found in one place, and definitely maximizing that use of land and building is something that a lot of libraries are going toward. And there are a lot of libraries that are built within rec centers as well, where you have people already there, they're doing other things in the libraries, becomes part of their routine. That's what we look for, the library being part of people's routine.
Great, thank you. Again, congratulations. This is a great report.
Thank you.
And now over to Councillor Wilson, who's also council rep on the library board.
That's right. Thank you, Deputy. Welcome to Council Chambers, Melissa. And
Thank you.
Chuck, thank you to you and the board and the volunteer team that hold everything together at the library, at least from the policy end of things. And thank you for having me on the board. I thought I'd just ask one question in the same vein as Councillor Reid, and that's about the possibility of a new library. And maybe for the benefit of the group, I've already heard this, of course, that's why I'm bringing it up. But could you share our current situation when we're hosting events at the library, especially the 2 biggest ones you do at least a couple times a year, where What really struck me was the bringing in porta potty experience and all the extra charges involved with just having a facility that's too small. I thought that was fairly eye-opening, and it could shed some light in our current situation. And when you're saying that thanks to council for advocating and moving forward the RFP process for a new building, maybe it'll just shed some light on why we're heading in that direction.
Sure. So we currently have porta potties in the parking lot because we have a number of events that exceed our facility capacity. In the same limitations, we have to cap registration on programs because we can't fit everyone into the room to participate in the program. And so we do find ourselves turning away people from library programs and events because we don't have the space. And we do try to host as many things as possible in the location so that we're not having to go elsewhere. So the porta potties help. They're something that helps with that capacity issue, but it is an ongoing issue for us, and we have looked at having them more long-term on site. We do have them currently just for a few months, but may have to look at having them longer term. And then the facility feasibility study, very important for us to look at what's possible and to look at where we need to go and to do all of that community engagement and look at the types of services that we can evolve into offering with more space.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Councillor McFadden?
Yes, thank you. Just echoing my colleagues, thank you for all the great work that you and your team do, and your volunteers and your board of directors and everybody who makes a huge difference to keeping our library one of those important parts of the community. So thank you for that. I've always been a fan of libraries. And as was highlighted by Councillor Reid, I mean, what a library is changed so dramatically. And I really feel that the Cochrane Library has done a great job of staying in pace with that. So kudos to you. I know we've kind of highlighted the big picture. We're going through the feasibility study to see what we need. We all know we need a bigger library. It's just what that actually looks like and how we can deliver on that. And it'll be, best case scenario, even if we had the money in the bank, it'll be a couple of years out before we can make that happen. So my question is more immediate. I think you'd identified earlier in your presentation that you're based on best in class or recommendations for how libraries operate. You're actually looking to have 19 and a half staff working for you. And so how many do you have now?
17.3.
Right. And so in the last budget ask, you'd actually asked for the 19.5. That's correct? I can't remember. You were
I
not
wasn't here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, and so we're still seeing the need for that. And so I just wanted to highlight that for anyone who's looking ahead to the fall budget, that that ask to be at 19.5 is probably going to be in this ask again this year to continue to deliver on that. And one of the reasons I think that's so obvious with that is, the 6% increase in visits, a 26% increase in program participants, which means you need more staff to deliver on that. A 31% increase in circulation of items, which I think is a minimum. Somebody's touching each and every one of those books, right? So there's a lot of growth going on with the library that I think we need to support, because I don't think we've been at the proper baseline of staffing the library in the time that I've known the library. So I think we need to stretch, and just keeping it at inflation plus isn't the right solution for our community. So I just want to share my thoughts on that. Kudos to your wins of the year. And I did want to say, I love your Kid Librarian of the Month. That's such a fun program. And I'll try to make it with my son to the Night with the Stars. So
Perfect.
Great work.
Thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Hi, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work and for meeting the needs in the community. I know that the extra money has really helped you, and I'm glad to hear about that. And I'm really proud of the programming that you're doing around reconciliation. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mayor Janelle?
Yeah, thank you. Echo what everyone has already said, but thank you to you and your board and all the work that you're doing. You should be proud of that community survey result. Excellent job. I've been a long, huge advocate for the library and a modern library and a new advanced building in our community. Everyone's going to be sick of me saying this, but the Halifax Library has been a beacon and of hope for me since I've visited there, that's something we could emulate as a community. And I think the work ahead for all of us is to do the work of educating our community, and it's not just Cochrane, it's everywhere, what a modern library looks like. And you've talked about, and Councillor Reid touched on this, about multiple uses combined, and that is what a modern library looks like. But the needs assessment, I'm glad that we're undertaking that work already so that we can have studies in place, so we can put this into perhaps an offsite levy in the future. But there is, I think, my question is, I guess, my long-winded question is, what are the types of things that you have seen in your travels in those 15 other spots that other communities are implementing into their modern libraries?
Yeah, great question. And I'll just drop a little note that our outreach services manager came to us from Halifax Public Library. So
Great start.
Yeah, so we will make sure we get some information from her. So a lot of things are responding to gaps in the community, be it from technology to food scarcity to just social services. So there's just a lot of opportunities for partnership. So not libraries delivering all of the service with their own staff necessarily, but providing the space for the community partners to have somewhere to do it. So seeing a lot of that in various library spaces, a lot of different understandings of different use of libraries. So there are a lot of competing uses of the library, be it boisterous fun and play and quiet study and having to do your virtual interview. So there's lots of ways that communities are just meeting needs that people have that they don't find in other places in the community. And it is the ultimate and sort of last free space where you can just come be. And so we read a lot about the loneliness epidemic that's happening as well, and libraries are spaces where you can come be part of a community and participate in the way that you want to participate, or just be in a space that is a community space. So just that civic engagement and that community use and being part of a community. The library is really the place where all of that happens, along with being that connector. Libraries have always been connectors to all the things that are happening in a community, but if the building and the facility can be part of that connection, that goes a long way as well.
Yeah, I love your answer. One of the massive takeaways for me from the Halifax Library was it was a community hub. It wasn't a space to be quiet and take out a book. It was that, but it wasn't only that. Including performing arts type of and meeting space where not a full-blown arts facility, but a place where you could have 100 seats and have lectures or give presentations or concerts, small concerts. The other thing I'm hearing from a lot of community groups in town is the need for more meeting space in our community. Is that also on your radar?
Yes, definitely. Meeting space is definitely on the radar. Working on the 3 facilities projects in Calgary Public Library could never build enough meeting rooms. They are always booked, constantly booked. Did a renovation at Fish Creek, put in 10, could have put in 20 if we had the room, because they're just always in use. So just from people doing their own thing, maybe they're kind of working from the library, a lot of entrepreneurs wanting to support that, to people group study. We know we have students in our library. We know we have business people in our library, people meeting, tutoring. There's all kinds of things happening where meeting rooms are definitely a thing that people are looking for.
And a source of revenue?
They can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a library member, they're free to use, but they're definitely a source of revenue. And something like a performance hall, that is definitely a large source of revenue for large events that can be rented out.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you brought up the porta potties. Well, I see the need, and I congratulate you on the innovation of bringing that in to suit the demands that you're faced with. I take that as a bit of an embarrassment on our community that we're at that stage that we haven't addressed the library sooner. And I know I'm not criticizing any of the work that has been done. We're doing it, but it does really prove the need that we are in need of new space here. So thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Councillor Nagel?
Yeah, just as you began your presentation, I'll begin my comments with gratitude. So thank you very much for everything you do for the community at the library. I actually just wanted to ask a few questions about some stopgap measures. I know we need a new and expanded library, but until we get there, what can we do to alleviate the pressure? So my first question anyways, is for our administration. Is there anything going on for synergies between the Cochrane Station and the library? When I used to be a library board member, that was something that came up in a few conversations. Is there something we can do or are doing to alleviate some of the library's pressures by tapping into that space that's right across the street?
Yeah, thank you through the chair, Councillor Nagel. So certainly I know that there's been conversations about how those spaces can be complementary, including, you know, the outdoor space where programming can take place and those types of things. The majority of the space at the station is permanently programmed through our incubator and through our administrative spaces, so there's limited pieces there. We do have a few boardroom spaces that I think some library functions or programs have taken place there. I unfortunately am not familiar enough to speak with much more specificity than that. I will say we are absolutely open to that ongoing conversation to ensure, you know, maximum use of both spaces and also availability of appropriate programming.
And then something that entered my mind the other day, and this may be too big of a question to get an answer today, but when we built the Cochrane Station, I remember there being a conversation about it initially being a larger facility, but then we had to downsize it due to a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. There was the global pandemic, there was COVID. But I think there was a little bit of a conversation that maybe it could be scaled up in the future. Was the station built in a way that we can add additional floors to it, or did that not actually happen? I don't know the engineering details.
Through the chair to Councillor Nagel, I think what you're referring to is originally in that park space that is directly to the east. There was a 3-story building that we did a preliminary design, and then of course COVID, we had 2 tenants. The tenants at that time decided because of the current conditions that they wouldn't proceed. So that's when we came to council and recommended doing a smaller building. However, we do have an opportunity to revisit that design and have an opportunity to do something on that site. That was always envisioned in the long term.
And is that sort of strategy something we could consider while we're looking at the needs of the Cochrane Library?
I think that would be really important to consider.
Yeah, the idea I had in my mind was hopefully not knocking down the current facility, but just adding more space right there.
Yeah, we wouldn't be looking at adding it necessarily to the existing building. We didn't, to answer your previous question, we didn't design that building in such a manner that we could add another story to the building, but there was the space to the east that, again, with the Central Plaza, we got the funding, the grant funding from the Canadian government for that, but always envisioned that to be a full development on the Cochrane Crossing site.
Yeah, and just to clarify my comments, I wasn't saying that I wouldn't, the knocking down comment was with regards to the library. I was thinking, how could we keep the existing library space and add something right across the street to make it more cost effective? But anyways, things to keep in mind. Thanks for your answers. Thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you to my colleagues for their comments and questions. I do have a couple questions myself. The feasibility study, growth study, when are you expecting all those to be fully complete? And then what is your plan for the next steps at that point?
So the facility feasibility study will wrap up summer of next year, and they'll be able to report on their findings, I believe, June, July of 2026. So right now they're in the community engagement phase, and then going into the fall, they'll be doing a little more targeted focus group engagement, and then they'll be producing some reports and getting into design into early 2026. So that's with the consultants for that piece. And then for ourselves, you know, running the library, I'm working on a growth strategy that will address some of the current growth problems, staffing, capacity issues. So that's in the works, and I'm working on those, knowing that we have to do something in the meantime, and we have to plan to scale up as well. So we're working on that.
I appreciate that, and I understand, you know, you being involved with many builds. You know that it's not easy just to build a new library, but you have to have the staff that goes along with it, and obviously you need the support of council to be able to gain those numbers so that when you do transition to a new building, you're not going over with the same 17.3 staff that you currently have, right?
Yes.
I guess in the meantime, and I don't know if this was kind of talked about more, I believe at one time there was a talk about doing like mobile outreach or having a vehicle or van or something along that so that you could meet people in the community. Is that still something that you're looking towards?
Yeah, that's on our radar and is part of the strategy for the next few years to see what's feasible. I think it's definitely something that would be of use and would add to our services. So that is part of the growth strategy. And just to go back to your other point about the staffing, I do have a 5-year staffing framework already done and ready, so we know where we should be going. So.
Perfect. Well, I think we're all excited to hear the future of where the library is going to go. So thank you for your presentation this evening. Council, any other final thoughts? No, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite up our next delegation from Innovate Cochrane. I believe we have Mr. Clausen with us, as well as Mr. Eaton. I can see him in the room.
Right. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of council. It's my pleasure to introduce Nathan Clausen, co-founder of Innovate Cochrane this evening. Mr. Clausen is here tonight representing Innovate Cochrane to make presentation to council on the intended use, progress, achievements, and impact of the $25,000 in grant funding provided to Innovate Cochrane in 2025. Innovate Cochrane is a co-recipient of a 3-year Prairie Scan grant received in 2024 as well, intended to establish Cochrane as a center of innovation, skilled employment, and economic vibrancy by way of programs such as the Cochrane Business Incubator, Community Innovation Ecosystem Program, and a number of other events offered by Innovate Cochrane throughout the year. So I'll hand it over to Nathan for his presentation, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I think Mark just took about half of my slides there in that introduction, so this could go quite quickly, or not. We'll see how this goes down. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. I'm using my old person glasses because I lost my other ones, so I'll be looking over my glasses at you this evening. I am Nathan Clausen, a community member for 10 years here in Cochrane, and so for obviously you on the council have been in your chairs for 8 years. A lot of this story has unfolded before 2022 when we officially legalized what is now the legal vehicle called Innovate Cochrane. We've been in conversation around innovation as a community for years, really all the way back to the Smart Cities bid that we did. A number of us just put our hand up in the community who were interested in this topic of innovation, and that really was some of the genesis of what now we founded. There was 4 of us at the time in 2022, really wanted to bring the community contribution to bear. We were seeing, shovels going in the ground around the station. We saw the town's commitment, and we wanted to step up and say, okay, what's the community going to do in a tangible way? So Innovate Cochrane was formed by just a groundswell, really, from a few of us in the community, and it's really obviously taken shape and evolved since then. The tagline that you'll often hear in our programming if you attend our events is not just what are the needs in Cochrane, but what are the needs for innovation in Cochrane? Meaning, what are the real needs? There are many tangible needs in our community. What have we tried to do already as a community? And then for some of those needs, what are ways that we maybe need to come at this from a different angle? I tried new things. I absolutely love the presentation that we just heard from the library. They are quintessentially an innovation engine in our community. We love to brag to anybody who we bring into Cochrane to show the innovation ecosystem that's happening here. Like the number of things I've borrowed from the library that are not books, that are life jackets, that are tools, a power wash, unit. There are all kinds of things. We have a fantastic library. So I wasn't in their presentation, but I sure would have liked it. That's fantastic. We love, Innovate Cochrane, really it's about, and many of you maybe are familiar with the Greater Calgary innovation ecosystem, and so you'll hear Innovate Calgary or Innovate Canmore. Many of those are, technology-centric, or they are private, enterprise-centric. Innovate Cochrane is unique among the Innovate fill in the blanks, in a sense that we are fundamentally about community innovation. How do we innovate as a community, as a very fast-growing community? How do we maintain meaningful connections among the people, among the organizations, businesses, entities, as we get bigger and bigger and bigger? And so that's really what we've been targeting in our initial, like any other startup, you have to find what's your value, what are people willing to exchange value to you for, and you test those things as quickly as you can, because often you don't have endless resources, to run that runway. So we've been testing a number of things. I'll get into a few of those things here shortly. But what we're finding is there are so many good things happening in our community. Sometimes it's just lack of awareness of what's already here. One of the key things we've been testing is, can we be a catalyst for meaningful connection and activation of the things that are already happening in our community? And so, for example, can I steer this, or who's driving my PowerPoint tonight? Fantastic, thank you for that. All right. A number of the things, and in our 3 short years since our inception as a legal entity, we have our Community Innovator Spotlight Series. That's what I facilitate at the bookstore on a monthly basis. So much great innovation happening in our community, and we just bring them up on stage and we just have them share that innovation. Often they don't see that as innovation. They're not looking for a microphone. That's often the best innovation to share. And we've seen hundreds of people come through that bookstore on a monthly basis, aggregate. Reed Kimmett from 2 Pharmacy was willing to jump in with me on that. That was an idea that I had, and he's an innovator. 2 Pharmacy is an innovation engine in our community. That's what started it. We've been doing it for 2+ years now. Founders Coffee, we do over at one of the coffee shops in the morning. Startup Cochrane, which Mark Eaton from our board hosts over at his co-working space. Really just experimenting with, how do we make a circle? How do we gather entrepreneurs, people that have ideas that don't maybe have a community? How do we get them in a room together and we test the value? We've been testing the value of a number of different events since our inception in 22. Our one key program is our Community Innovation Ecosystem Program, which is very intentionally businesses and nonprofits together in a room, a cohort-based 8-month program. It's a partnership that we incepted with Unbounded Thinking. They're another Alberta startup, for-profit, but they focus on human-centered innovation management as a framework. They come out of a professional innovation background. We brought them to Cochrane, and we brought our community into the room, and we tested bringing some of their very kind of intentional innovation capacity building training that they sell and offer to large corporates who can afford it. We brought that into our community, and we're offering it to our nonprofits, to our small and medium-sized businesses. And we've done 2 full cohorts of that. Now we're launching our 3rd cohort in September. You may have heard it on the radio. We're trying some other marketing tactics this fall. But we've seen fantastic and very measurable results from watching individual organizations bring their leadership teams into the room, commit to a few hours a month, and then they do that in a cohort environment where they're hearing across the tables the challenges that others are experiencing. For-profit businesses that have the same challenges as our nonprofit organizations in the community, and how they're solving their problems and challenges actually work across the fence. And so we're seeing that community value come back to them, and then we're seeing collaborations within those groups that generate new revenue, new opportunities, and then jobs, et cetera. So we'll bring some of the stats in here shortly, but we're testing, what does meaningful connection do to stimulate measurable economic reflective growth individually, and then obviously collectively as a community. We all win when individual businesses and our nonprofits thrive. We've got some funding partnerships that we've been successful with. I'll get to those shortly. Yeah, I get excited, so I'm going to stick to my slides and we're going to carry on. Let's go to the next slide here. One of the key partnerships that we've experimented with as being a catalyst for is driving this Cochrane Community Innovation Team, or CCIT. All of these individual organizations on the screen bring their own unique mandate. We are all unique, and yet there's overlap. And so instead of it being competitive, we've intentionally gathered everyone around the table, and we've spent the time to learn from each other. What is each of us bringing in value to the community? And how do we each become an amplifier for the others, but then also an alignment with the others, so that when somebody comes to the community and wants to start a business, or has a business and needs financing, or is looking for training in a certain topic, and maybe they're tourism leaning, or maybe they don't know that they're tourism leaning. How do we make it as easy as possible, in collaboration with the economic development function here at the town, which is also closely tied to the CCIT function, how do we be intentional and just be connected with each other? And so one of the investments, and I'll get to the 25,000 and express some gratitude around that as well, but part of the investment of that is to help build out a vehicle coming out of this collective to make it as easy as possible digitally for someone who's coming to our community. Hey, they want to move here and live here, but they want to start their business or they want to grow their business. How do we collaborate within the community and with the town to make that as quick as possible for them to decide, yes, this is my community because look what's happening and look what I can get from the community. That's some of the intentional work coming out of this monthly or every other month gathering that's happening amongst these organizations. All right, as far as funding partners, Mr. Kuczynski, he referenced it. We were very thankful to achieve the Prairies Economic Development Canada, or Prairies CAN funding, just shy of $1 million. That's a 23 to 27 as far as years. There's three primary functions or pillars of funding that focus. One is the business incubator, which is the town's operation currently. There's also our community innovation ecosystem program. And then there's our Innovate Cochrane kind of other programming that we're still iterating on. All of those fall within that $953K. So roughly, the town's portion, I believe, actually it's on the next slide, the town has roughly about $450,000 of expense that is part of the budgeted cycle tied to the incubator that can actually come back and be reimbursed through this partnership that Innovate Cochrane has with the town. This had to be submitted by a nonprofit, so we were the ones that submitted it, but we brought economic development to the table and said, hey, how can we make this a community story, because those stories are the ones that get attention, because it shows that we're willing to work as a community. That's worth investing in, and we've proven it a couple times, actually. We also have the NRED, the second line there, which was a stacked funding. So now for every dollar that we bring in against these two funding engines here, top two, we actually get, for every other dollar, we can actually get $2 back. So that becomes even a better story when now we go out to other funding agencies or our entities. We have a funding plan tied to our strategic plan, so our governance footing now is getting more and more established. So our puzzle pieces internally are coming together. These existing funding agreements are great. Most of these are matched funding, so if anybody lives in the nonprofit space, you have to spend money to get this money to come back to you. So we're working on that piece as well as a board. We're thankful for Calgary Innovation Coalition, which is essentially Alberta Innovates funding. The town, right at the beginning, 2023, we saw some funds coming collectively, 40K together now, so 15K then and 25K in this 2025 year, which again, I'll get to the 25K for this year shortly on how we're going to spend that. But really grateful to the town that it's given us some seed funding right at the beginning of our journey to help us really test how do we bring measurable value. That was helpful for us to receive that funding. Let's quickly move to the others. I know I can see my time ticker is expired, so I'll cruise through here. Like I mentioned, this is a key formal partnership with the town through economic development. The town can actually gain about 47% benefit back from this total funding. The other two bits are 53% for us. And again, you guys can ask questions as you'd like. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things we wanted to do as a new nonprofit in our community was measure. We wanted to bring data to bear, and so the numbers you're seeing are an aggregate of our CIE program, the cohort program, the jobs created. The revenue increases was actually feedback from our cohort business participants to say, now that you've been through the program, how much of your revenue that you're already experiencing now since the program would you attribute to being part of the cohort? That's the number that was aggregated, and that's actually not counting businesses that did not provide us specific quantified numbers because they were not at liberty to do so. They gave us percentage increases of their total revenue. You can see the number of SMEs that we've assisted. The HQP, that highly qualified personnel, I think is the federal government, provincial government metric acronyms. We've touched a lot of those folks. And then community engagement, we've seen over 600 folks come through our various programs in the last 2 to 3 years. So yeah, we're happy with our inception and our first chapter, and we've got a lot more on the horizon. And we appreciate the town's participation along the way. This is the 25K. I'll just quickly go through this. This is important, definitely tonight. Half of it, 12,005, is specifically targeting the Small Business Week, which is that CCIT group, all that logo soup that you saw before within our community organizations. 2024 was a big lift in that Small Business Week impact compared to the previous year, and we're looking for an even bigger year this year. That's a great collective. Some of those funds are going to go to impacting even more small and medium-sized businesses, and the commitment is to then report back and test how can we innovate and show a measured impact to that kind of event. Obviously, our CIE program, we've got multiple cohorts planned in advance here. That CCIT continues to roll. We want to do that digital aggregate of how do we make it easy for people coming to the community to know which are the services that are available. And that 7,500 is additional. That's really an infusion into our foundation as an organization to keep building out our advancement committee, which we've launched, in our advancement plan, and then more promotion of what's already happening and getting that word out to the community so we can get even more impact from what's already existing, ours and the others that are in that CCIT group. We're working on board and staffing development. We've grown to a board of 6. We have some great people on our board. Fund development for sure is in our crosshairs, and we're looking at a social impact lab in 2026. We've applied for some funding, which we'll know of results on in November. We have some professional background on our own board in that realm of social innovation labs or social impact labs. And so we're looking at testing one. Everything that we do that you'll see on these slides is in collaboration with others in the community. None of this stuff is done in isolation because that's fundamentally not our mandate or our MO. I'm going to leave it there because I've used a lot of words, and I'll open it up. So thank you all, and we really appreciate the $25,000 that was allocated for us this year to keep us laying our foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klassen, and congratulations on the continuing success of Innovate Cochrane. I'll open it up to questions. Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Nathan, great presentation. For me, the measurable results or the return on investment have been exceptional with this program. I love the kind of causal loop, cross-functional collaboration in terms of community innovation. I love that centric kind of approach, which is, you're right, is quite different from everything else that I've read or learned about. So that would be my compliment. I had 2 questions. In a report, it referred to the Prairies Can Community Investment Grant, which you referenced. Is that guaranteed, or has that already been awarded, or is that something we're applying for, or just take me through that?
The core agreement that backstops that $987,000.
Right.
That agreement is in place. It's inked with the province, and so now it's our challenge collectively between our organization and economic development to spend the money that they're looking for us to spend and report on every quarter. It's definitely a machine now of gives and takes, and so it really is our challenge now to spend as much of that as possible to get that full $980,000 back in return.
And the other one was the community investment program itself, the government of Alberta one. What's the probability? Where's that at? What's the probability of success in terms of landing that?
Oh, that's probably crystal ball territory. Okay. I think it's quite strong, frankly. So in relation to the social impact lab, that CIT, I think, or CIP, that application
CIP.
That is coming due in November. Within the span of probably a week and a half, we floated the idea within our own circle. We socialized it with a few other voices in the community. So the first focus of that social impact lab will be a housing theme. We felt like that was one that's tangible. There's a lot of actors in our community, and many of them are known to all of us at the table. Within a week, we had 5 letters of support from community services here at the town, from CSHO, from other entities in the community, from businesses in the community that wanted to be part of a housing narrative. We ended up with 5 letters, and we were able to submit that as part of our application. So we've applied to some and not seen result. We've applied to others when we were still within a year of our legal entity. It took Prairies Can, and we saw 1 million come back. So I think the narrative of Cochrane that we're presenting is resonating with different funding agencies or entities. So I feel confident that we're going to see a positive result come November, and we're already underway. We're not waiting for the funding. We're taking a measured approach to what we can do now. But there's a lot of foot on the gas already, and we have a bit of a foot on the brake, but there's a lot of foot on the gas collectively in the community on that topic, I would say. So.
Can I ask one more supplemental question? So what prompted me to ask about that one is I did a little bit of research on that one and recognized, as you've clearly pointed out, is that it's community partnership, or partnerships, I should say, from within the community that is really critical from every aspect, right? I'm just curious, what more could we be doing as a town or town council or as members of the community in terms of being able to see that you land this?
I think, to be honest, that we saw absolutely fantastic support leading up to the submission for that application. Like I said, we had letters of representation that were quite broad, including the town itself provided a letter. Matt provided us his letter from the director level. So I think off the cuff, not a lot. I think once we see that approval and we have the resources to really move on that,
right.
I fully expect there'll be a lot more engagement. At this point, we tried to take a measured first step just to get it out of the gates. But I mean, that topic obviously is the first topic that we've chosen to really tackle and test this idea on is housing. Yeah. There are a lot of voices, and we would want to bring all those voices to bear in that framework, in a social impact lab model. And we have leadership on our own board that can actually facilitate that through past experience.
And I'm just curious if there's something, politicians to politicians that we could be, with the Premier and the community and other ministers available to us through the Mid-Cities Mayor Group or other ways, if there's some other ways of being able to address this rather than just straight on, right? And, and maybe I'll leave that with the mayor, administration, and other members of council in terms of being able to see it go forward. But again, this is really exciting, and I'm glad that we made that investment and that you've taken it so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Janelle.
Nathan, great to see you here tonight. I'm glad you went back and gave us a bit of a history lesson on the genesis of Innovate Cochrane. We're so focused, at least I am, on the future and what's next and what are we into today, and we get our heads down, and often we forget to celebrate the successes in our community. And that Smart Cities application that we worked on together feels like forever ago. I think actually we dodged a bit of a bullet in not getting the funding from the federal government, as I've heard in other communities having to go through all of the criteria in which to meet that, and it ended up not producing the results. So I'm really happy to hear, almost 8 years later, you and your group and just the genesis of how you, and the evolution, I guess, of how you've gotten here today. So thank you for sharing that. I think getting people in the same room is never a bad thing, especially post-COVID when we were, separated for so long, bringing people together, the collisions, the collaboration. Kudos to you and your group for that. And as Councillor Reid pointed out, I was really interested in the data that you produced, and I've been advocating to our own administration around the incubator about, I think we should and could put up the same type of numbers as we start to evolve that ecosystem as well, to start to share with people about how the work that we're doing is translating to jobs, economy, and return on investment. And often I think we get lost in the doing and not so much on the successes again. So thank you for the data. My only question is, I know we're partnering with you at the station for space. We just heard from the library their need. What's your group's kind of focus on the future and where you see yourself in 3, 5, 7 years from now?
Yeah, I was actually mulling on that a little bit here just prior to the meeting tonight. We are an organization that does not have its own dedicated space. We want to be agile that way. We're a presence in the community and a catalyst, but don't need space necessarily. I mean, we utilize space at the co-working station as for our board meetings, as an example. We actually sold Prairie's Can sitting in the boardroom at the library because the station wasn't built yet. We were pointing across the street and telling them the vision, and they bought that vision. So we hop around. So I think, though, I love the idea of a collective conversation around what is that central footprint that maybe houses multiple entities. Yeah. I envision at some point we likely will need a desk somewhere. We have an executive director. I'm sure she would benefit from a desk. So, and so there is some conversation. At times she's, sat in at the incubator. Obviously, we have a strong relationship with Shane and the team there. So it's been evolving. And so it's a good question. 3 to 5 years. I envision our organization staying quite lean as far as our own FTE kind of footprint, but really leveraging that catalyst function to its fullest. I'm quite hesitant for us to try and spend any of our money on lights and heating. I'm quite reticent to do that, frankly. And even I love the idea, and I'm helping hands, and others have come through our CIE program, and I see the ability to mobilize an army of resource within the community in pretty innovative ways. There's a lot of sharing of insight and how, like the pain that many organizations have gone through to get to where they are and what's working for them. We're sharing that across lines now because there's a lot of value, I think, in some of those models. So we're sharing those models amongst ourselves.
Awesome. Good for you, and thank you to your board. I know you all put in a lot of effort and volunteer time, but thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor McFadden?
Thank you, Nathan. Welcome, and thank you to you and your group, and Mark, I see you back there, for all the great work you do. And it's just been great to actually see you highlight the wins, because established 2022, and I think if I did the math right, like you've managed to get funding for like 1.2 million, and that's 1.2 million to focus on innovation, like people innovation in Cochrane. And it's such a great win. And I know like a lot of the monies that have been raised are actually, it's a partnership with the people of Cochrane through the town of Cochrane, like through supporting the building, supporting the programs that's happening there. So I just want to make sure we're thanking you for a successful partnership that is helping us as the town of Cochrane and yourselves, 1 + 1 is 4 in Innovate Math, right? So so I just wanted to note that and to do the kudos on that. I did have a question for you that I got lost in your presentation. In your metrics, you said you'd managed to support so many SMEs. An SME is what?
Thank you. Yep, abbreviations or acronyms will kill us all. So SME is small and medium-sized enterprise.
Okay.
So typically reflects, and there's, by provincial definition, they'll have a definition on what constitutes a small business or a medium-sized business. We've used the province's sizes, so it might be sub 50 persons or sub 100 persons equals small or medium-sized, et cetera. And so even the pricing or the advertising that we'll do for our community innovation ecosystem program will match our pricing against those sizes. And then the nonprofits, typically it's half of that for them, and so that we try and make that as affordable as we can. And frankly, because of some of this funding, we're bringing a program that easily could be $35,000 to $50,000 as a price tag, and we can offer that to our nonprofits and our small businesses that are at a place where they want to grow, but the founders who brought a very specific value to get them there don't have the adjacent knowledge and skills. And so this adds that complement, and then they can bring their leadership team into the same room and they can grow together. And so that's the model we're testing, but it's often that small and medium-sized business that it's our sweet spot, because we only have a couple large corporates in our community.
Right. And I think your number said you've helped 8 so far.
We had 9 in our first cohort and 5 in our second cohort, so actually 14 total.
Okay.
And we're looking at a cohort of 10 for the fall. I'm just back from vacation overseas, so I have no idea where we're at. I'm going to find out tonight.
Okay.
And but our hope is to really keep bringing as many in as we can, but intentionally mixing nonprofit and business in the same room, because we find that's the best kind of cake to bake, recipe-wise. Yeah.
I like cake to bake. So so what I'm hearing from this is with the 1.2 you've raised, and with out of that, the value you're able to contribute back to smaller innovators is the capacity to add like a $40,000 to $50,000 value into their training and supports to really then take what is a brilliant idea and hopefully take it to the next level. So I really wanted to applaud you with that for sure. And then your report on the 25,000, that's just kind of a preliminary report on the 25,000 that you were granted in the last budget cycle, correct?
Correct, that's correct, yeah.
Okay, and again, a lot of that is about, that's not innovating outside of town, it's not innovating to businesses, it's a lot of concrete value back to how the town of Cochrane supports our community.
You got it.
Okay, cool. And yeah, and just the last little kudos about this, like looking at your mission statement here, and I know when we say innovate, often people think it's tech, right? It's like, hey, we want to have an Innovate Cochrane Center. And they think it's a tech center. And I really appreciate how Innovate Cochrane has chosen to fulfill your mission of, success of innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the community. I really like that mission statement because at the end of the day, it's all about people. And at the end of the day, that's what this should always be about. It's about people. So thank you very much to the work you and your group are doing.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councillor Wilson?
Thanks for being here, Nathan. I admit I know less about your group than probably most around the table, and thought I'd just take an opportunity to ask a couple broad spectrum questions because you've certainly perked my interest. I got to do a tour in it was Kitchener-Waterloo with Mayor Genong and Councillor Reid 3 years back, I believe, with an FCM event, and I got to see what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Canada's probably leading tech incubator program looks like in person on the ground. I thought I'd just get your opinion on, is that your North Star for Innovate Cochrane? Is it something like that? Or you confused me, but also surprised and impressed me when you said you're not into bricks and mortar. I think that's wise not to, at least off the start, bleed money that way. What's the home run future for Innovate Cochrane? Is it something like Kitchener-Waterloo, or is that something totally different?
Appreciate that, Councillor. I've had a chance to step through that velocity space or some of those spaces in Kitchener-Waterloo as well. I would say that that's actually not directly our North Star. I think our North Star is identifying small and medium-sized enterprises, whether that's business or nonprofit, because they bring different value to the community, and actually finding a way to accelerate those businesses as our primary focus. So less about incubating. So our core mandate as an organization is less about incubating ideas and businesses. That's where, for example, an incubator itself, a business, and even the ecosystem within the town's current offerings of you have the business incubator, you have the Smart Start program. Those skill building, capacity building programs are really for getting businesses from I have an idea up through early stages to stable. Our program is really about, these are businesses that have already been in business, say 2 to 3 years. They have maybe 3 to 4 employees minimum. They have stable revenues, and they're trying to figure out how to survive or grow. And that's the sweet spot that we see our programming so far targeted. And that's where we've seen our value, our impact. And that includes nonprofits that are also trying to look for innovative ways to grow and thrive and bring their value to our community, and then putting them in the room with the businesses that are trying to do the same thing in their narrative in that for-profit kind of legal structure. So I don't know if that answers your question directly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then it dovetails into my second kind of broad spectrum question, which is, I don't know a ton about what's going on at the station with our incubator program and the physical space and success and failures we've had there. I know what our original idea was for that, and that was, I think, principally trying to see, can we replicate a small scale and grow it into a bigger scale Cochrane version of Kitchener-Waterloo, which would benefit our whole community. From your perspective, how are we doing there? I thought you'd be a good person to weigh in on that.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to provide my individual thoughts on that. So within the ecosystem that we have now, which is, our programs, and again, if we splash up like the logo soup that was up here before, Cochrane, like the tourism and ourselves and Community Futures, et cetera, the business incubator and the Smart Start program that the town is offering at the station, some of the businesses that have come through that program are now potentially candidates for what we're doing in the CIE program. So if they've become stable and if they've been able to increase their revenues as an incubated business, we know who they are because we're all in relationship together. We all go to Founders Coffee together. Like that, those other offerings, those are collective invitations for people that are entrepreneurs in our community. So you're seeing folks come to our community innovator spotlight series that we do at the bookstore. I'm interviewing some of the folks that are in the incubator. It's all a single database of relationships, and we're just looking at where people are at in their individual journeys, and then we're trying to plug them in or offer what they need, whether it's us or the incubator or the Smart Start program. So it is an ecosystem right now, and a very intentional ecosystem between programs. And I think what I've seen in the businesses, I'm adjacent to what the incubator itself has been doing. I know the entities that have been in and have graduated from that program. I've seen a lot of growth in a number of those businesses. We've had some of them on our own stage, and we've actually now invited some of them to be part of our next growth. How do we help them stay on a growth path and again build a more stable footing? So I think we're integrating it. Yeah, probably not the optimal person to provide a grade for how the incubator is doing. I think it's an absolutely critical need. It meets a critical need that our programming doesn't meet. And so I think we need to look at these different programs in the community, regardless of who's providing them, to see where are there still gaps in our community. We have a great big brother called Calgary, you know, the greater innovation ecosystem that we're all equally tied in with, and we can bring programming from Calgary if we need it. The economic development here is doing a great job of they have their own network that they're building. I think the critical thing is for us to stay with each other, be aware of what each other is doing so that we don't end up duplicating or overlapping and we're actually really aligning. So we will stay aligned with whatever incubator activities continue to happen as an organization in the community.
Okay, excellent. It gives me a degree of confidence. I'm a guy that oscillates between, you know, what role should a municipality play in economic development at all, or any business development, and it gives me some confidence that we've created something useful, that it's money at least somewhat well spent, maybe very well spent, and that's what you just communicated, I think, rather than stepping away from it altogether and saying, why don't we
I think part of the
fix
intention,
potholes and collect garbages and forget about business development altogether.
I think part of the intention behind the partnership between the town and Innovate Cochrane with the Prairies Can money was to try and de-risk some of those early years of that incubator experience, where we can get half of those funds back from the incubator. So of that 100% that we get back that's in that agreement, 47% of it is the incubator budget and 53% of it is our Innovate Cochrane related activities budget. So that 47% is monies that can come back from monies that are being spent by the town in their budget in the incubator. Those are going right back to Prairies Can, and so I think so far, as an example of that $450K that's available to the town, 115 or 120,000 or so have already been reimbursed back to the town through receipts that have been submitted in activities so far in our early year and a half. And so that is one way to de-risk an investment or a bet like an incubator, by having it backstopped by an agreement like that.
Excellent. Appreciate your time and your expertise and all you do. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Councillor Nagel?
I think your conversation with Councillor Wilson might be an interesting segue to my question. So through my business, I've had the opportunity to go down to Silicon Valley a few times and just be part of the ecosystem down there. And the cultural environment is like, there's just such a startup vibe down there. The way everybody here is working in oil and gas or real estate or trades, it's like everybody down there is part of some startup. And the lifeblood of it all is capital that people have raised. And I just noticed that there's just so many of these events and opportunities down there for people to raise money to finance their ventures. And the opportunity that I see here in Cochrane is, unlike a lot of places in the world, there's actually a ton of money in this region. If you look up in the hills into Bearspaw, Springbank, or further down the road to downtown Calgary, there's a lot of people who want to invest in exciting new businesses. And so I was wondering if Innovate Cochrane is putting together anything to firstly, teach entrepreneurs how to raise capital, and then secondly, an avenue to facilitate meetings between prospective VCs in the area.
Oh, great question. I think that's a fundamental need in any innovation ecosystem, whether it's tech startups or just startups, period, that have a viable business that can be invested in with a return. I would say in our current ecosystem, again, this is to my knowledge, there are already a number of those types of activities happening, probably more ad hoc now than formal in our Cochrane innovation ecosystem. I would say because of where we're positioned in the ecosystem, we're really looking at those businesses that are already established and want to continue and innovate and grow. Those that are starting and are being incubated, that's likely more in the incubation phase, which again right now functionally is being served up by the business incubator. There is some of those conversations have happened and have been built into our first year or two of the incubator. We are actively part of that conversation to say, what is our value? What can we bring? What network can we bring? If somebody in our Cochrane ecosystem says, hey, we're going to do this thing, then all of us are aware of it and we all bring our network to that event. So if anything, it's an accelerator of maybe somebody else in the ecosystem being the point on something like that. But I find there's a generosity, a social capital generosity in our community, that if you need something and I know somebody who can serve that, I'm going to introduce you to them. Like we've done 2+ almost 3 years of these conversations at the bookstore. Most of those are warm introductions. Somebody comes to one and says, oh, this person should be on your stage. They're really innovative. I would never even have thought of them as an innovator till I have a coffee with them, and then it blows my mind, and then they end up on the stage. That's all social capital. So there's a lot of social capital, and there's a lot of financial equity in our community too, or region. I think my observation would be that that's largely untapped. And I think that's for iterations of what we need to do as our ecosystem. That still needs to be in our purview.
Okay, great. Yeah, it'd be really cool to see some sort of formal pitch program in Cochrane. Anyways, thanks a lot for everything you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of speak to the opportunity to kind of meet with potential funders. I think it was 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to get an invite from your group to attend the Inventures Conference in Calgary.
Yep.
And so that was really fascinating to attend because there were folks from Cochrane there, and it was great to see the different pitches that were happening about businesses and all the different sessions that were there. So we might not have a Cochrane specific one, but really significant big one is just down the road, and I know this group has been involved with that, and and it was a great conference to attend that year, so thank you for that.
Yeah, we're also typically we're often connecting our innovators here and startups in Cochrane to that Calgary ecosystem because it's already established, and there is an end, and we're actually succeeding. There are businesses here that are getting attention in Calgary, and there are tech startups that are no longer startups, that are scale-ups in our community because they are dialed into some of those broader investment conversations. I would say we have more growth to happen directly in Cochrane to make that a local function. Yeah, thank you.
My colleagues asked a lot of great questions, but I do have a couple. At a very high level, what are the biggest challenges that you face since forming Innovate Cochrane?
That's a great question. Probably like any other nonprofit, it's a sustained funding model. I'm not a big fan of asking for money. I think we should find ways to generate sustained revenues and innovate. As a nonprofit, I want us to be on that front edge of how do we help shed light on ways that nonprofits can generate sustained income and aren't having to be kind of availed of political cycles or funding cycles. I mean, we're living that already, and then we only have 3 funding sources that are provincial or federal. The reporting requirements for 3 of them don't align at all. And so you have to be innovative on how you collect your data to then not make a full-time person who we don't want to pay to just gather data. And so we're trying to innovate as an organization and shed light. It's funding, but we're actually seeing like a Cochrane Foundation and others doing some innovative things in our community that actually can help bring folks who have an interest in philanthropy, have equity, but need that return themselves. We're finding conversations that are starting to happen in our community down that path. So I'm encouraged about that. More hours and more work to be done on that. But funding is a big one. And then frankly, just awareness. That's a big one, obviously, and that's everybody's challenge, but we want to lean into that too. How do we innovate as a community and make it as easy as possible for people to know what's going on?
Yeah, well, and it's sometimes easier to talk about the bad news stories than it is the good news. And sometimes we forget to mention the good news, right? Because we're too busy kind of dealing with other stuff, right? So you guys have done tremendous things in the community. I know that it is Small Business Week coming up October 19th to the 25th, I believe. Do you know offhand what events will be surrounded Small Business Week, or are you still working on a little bit of a schedule?
I think, present progressive tense, actively working, finalizing. There's more runway and there's more intentional alignment between the groups, I'd say, this year. So this year's programming will be centric to the station. Economic development obviously playing a significant role there too, and collaborating on that. Right now the brainstorming is around what are the major themes that small and medium-sized businesses face every day, and who do we have in the community that's willing to share from their own background or bring people in. Those are the puzzle pieces that are coming together. I'm not acting as point from Innovate Cochrane on that. Kim Newton's our executive director, is our point person. But there's a number of people engaged from our community, our organization, and others that are actively working on that currently. Yeah. So if anybody had a taste of last year's, this will be that plus. I'm very excited for what's on the docket here.
Perfect. Well, I hope that you will reach out to all of us, no matter where our journeys take us in the future, to make sure that we're aware of what you guys are doing, because I realize that those stories are important, and that's how everybody grows, is by sharing those stories. So
Got it.
Thank you again for your presentation.
Good, thank you.
All right, council, we are now moving into the business section of our agenda for items A to E. And the first one that's up is Planning Services Technology Needs Assessment, and I would like to invite Mr. Auclair up to the podium.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Over the past few months, Community Growth and Tantus Technology Consulting embarked on a technology needs assessment for planning services. Currently, Planning Services completes all work through Microsoft Suite tools and Smartsheets without the aid of a workflow management tool. These are often used by other municipalities. The result of this may lead to missed opportunities to gain more efficiencies and effectiveness that software tools can provide. Lack of consistency, extended timelines, and increased pressure on staff as staff time is being allocated to administrative tasks that could instead be used to be focused on processing application spurs from not having a technology solution in place. As a first step, Planning Services began benchmarking exercises in early 2025 to compare ourselves with other Alberta municipalities and to see how many of those have technology solutions for their planning departments, as well as the impact their technology solutions have on the planning process and timelines. However, it became quickly became evident that as planning professionals, we needed help in this space, as we are not the experts in the technology components. So we reached out to Tantus Technology Consulting, as we wanted to set up the best possibility for success in planning and implementing any new possible solutions. Planning Services, again, reached out to Tantus Technology Consultants, who have over 60 years of experience in project management, consulting, and municipal government experience, including Trevor Butler's almost 10 years experience as Chief Information Officer for the city of Lethbridge, and Grant Gabrick's work with municipal, nonprofit, and post-secondary sectors. As part of their investigation, benchmarking components, as well as other important factors such as organizational readiness and costing summaries, were considered in their report, which was provided to you this evening. Tonight, I'm happy to be joined by Grant and Trevor from Tantus, who will take us through the technology needs assessment. Grant, Trevor, and myself will be happy to answer any questions that you may have after their presentation. Thank you, and welcome to Grant and Trevor.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much for having us. Walk you through just a quick overview of where we are. We'll do some proper introductions here in just a second. We want to give you folks an overview of just the project work that occurred, some of the key findings and some of the drivers of system investment that we found through the process. Speak a little bit in terms of organizational readiness within those drivers as well. And then focusing on some of the costing and budget summary pieces that came out of this work as well. And we'll, of course, leave some time for questions and discussion. Want to recognize council here, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councilors. Thank you for having us. I want to recognize all of you. Want to recognize our project sponsor, Mark Krasinski, and we probably should have Robert up here as well as our internal point person and project manager in terms of recognition. Robert gave us a good overview, but my name is Grant Gaubert, director with Tantus. I'm here with my colleague Trevor Butler. In the interest of time, I'm not trying to be rude. Trevor could introduce himself, but we'll try to move through it as fast as possible. So Tantus Solutions Group is Alberta-based. We're specifically based out of Edmonton, but we do have work across Western Canada. We do have expertise across a range of municipal operations, including in planning and development, operational improvements, and the firm does have deep expertise in IT and system planning and implementation supports across a wide range of roles. For us, it's very important to highlight that we are software and vendor independent. We're here to provide advice to municipal clients. We have no formal partnerships with any software providers at all. Just in terms of the project work that we did undertake and go through, for us there was a number of key drivers that were provided to us as in terms of what was required for this project. This idea that the current processes do require modernization, and that requires modern technology. The current processes used for planning and development review, while aided by some very clever tools, are ultimately manual. They live outside of a dedicated system, and they're really falling out of alignment with Cochrane's operational growth and needs, particularly given the high levels of growth in the town. A system like this can provide the potential for significant service delivery improvements, efficiencies, transparency, reporting capabilities, and integrations of work across departments. Planning and development activities don't occur just within the planning team. They really do work across the organization. And critically, a system like this can provide potential to track and report on some of those key service levels associated with development approvals, many of which are legislated. So very important pieces there. For our scope of work and the goals we were hoping to achieve, we really wanted to identify the scope for a new system like this. We want to clarify some of the system requirements, both functional and technical or non-functional, to really help set the stage for procurement, get administration ready for any procurement activities that would come, and really support this budgeting exercise. Part of this was conducting some of that system planning, making sure that the resources planned for this project matched the organizational readiness we're observing and really leading to the highest chance of success possible with the implementation. Quick timeline, we were able to kick our portion of this work off in May. We went through a series of requirement sessions really across the organization, worked through that organizational readiness component. Through June, we went through a jurisdictional scan, a little bit more limited in nature. We were very much targeting specific organizations and municipalities. Went through a validation on those requirements. Through the summer months, we began our costing and budgeting exercises, worked the team through a procurement strategy session, and really were able to pull together some of the report pieces. Obviously now kind of setting the stage for some of the budget confirmation and potential procurement activities that could follow. Again, wanted to speak to some of the key findings and some of those system need kind of drivers that we found. Spoke to this a little bit at the beginning, but the current processes supporting development approval activities really are highly manual. So what does that mean? It means they exist outside of a designated system. They live in emails and they live in smart sheets and spreadsheets and a variety of other tools, but they're not integrated into a single system. This can naturally lead to challenges around status tracking of applications, time measurement components, communication across teams and individuals, managing workloads and capacities. The piece that's not on here that it also speaks to is error and risk, which of course is really important. And it also misses some of those customer service kind of basics that we'd expect. A portal where you can pay and monitor your application and those types of things we're all used to as we kind of navigate various systems and e-commerce types of platforms these days. Again, definitely wanted to nod to some of the clever workarounds that have been put in place, but really what we heard is that volumes are starting to strain these current processes. We're starting to see some of those errors and challenges creep up just based on volumes. Critically, these manual processes don't capture reliable and useful data. That's very important for that service level tracking component that we spoke to. Again, speaking to this idea of scale, volumes are already challenging it, and of course future growth will continue to challenge these current processes if they continue to live outside of a system. Lack of integration is also a component of this. A lot of manual activity, transferring information between other systems that the town is invested in. And spoke to this a little bit, but our jurisdictional scan included a number of communities that were smaller than the town itself, and they have been investing into these types of systems, so a lot of other organizations are seeing the value in these as well. This is kind of the best visual way we can put this need together. This is a slide my mentor has used for years, and he's very proud that I was able to dig this out and present this to you today. And it speaks to the timing that really, when system investment is required. Manual processes like the town has right now for its development approval activities follow a certain trend. As volumes increase, cost per unit increases, because typically you have to add FTEs. Each one of those steps up in cost per unit is a new staff member. Critically though, the time to process per unit and error rates typically also increase with volume. When you move to an automated process, system-enabled process, you have the large upfront investment, but as volumes increase over time, that cost per unit is driven down. So it's a great way to leverage and scale existing staff over time and meet that future scale and demand and need. Time per unit for processing and error rates typically stay quite stable. Really, these are driven by how successful your implementation process is in this. The perfect version of this slide, these overlap and come together. I think we've lost that functionality somewhere in the Microsoft updates, but the magic really is to figure out where you are on this scale and where those volumes really demand that investment into a new system. There's not a scientific process for this, but based on what we heard in the previous slide, the volumes and the growth that the town is experiencing certainly seem to indicate that we're ready for this type of investment. In terms of the costing summary and budget estimates, we have provided a target cost level across a range of factors. Again, the requirements and scope of the solution that we heard about went into this. The experience with other jurisdictions and some of the budget information they were able to provide went into this. The organizational readiness and some of the roles that we heard about went into this costing estimate. So we've got a number of categories here. The vendor and system, sorry, my apologies, really the technology costs you would expect to invest. In many cases, this is kind of the typical budget number that you would see for this type of thing. We've got this a little over $600,000 based on, again, the experiences of other jurisdictions. The municipal software market is experiencing some inflation and some movement right now, so we feel this is a fairly conservative estimate that will give the town what it needs and lead to a successful procurement and not coming back for more with the market unable to sort of respond and provide what the town is asking for. Contracted resources, we did hear about some need for project delivery supports through that organizational readiness assessment process. Very, very important for project success that we do have knowledgeable roles able to provide a number of these. Right now, within this figure right here, we've got some project management support, some change management support, and some technical expertise for integration between systems and some data conversion activities that would have to occur. Staff backfill really is for some of those key staffing roles to provide that subject matter expertise that is so critical for an implementation like this. The gold standard for this is to take your very knowledgeable current staff, second them to the project, and then backfill some of those operational needs. Right now, over an estimated 18-month implementation, this equates to about 2.5 FTEs right now across a number of different teams in the organization. We've got a contingency in there because we're inflationary times, and it's always good to have that in there. So total budget request, again, over this kind of 18-month period is a little over $1.9 million in terms of that targeted cost level that we were expecting to see. We do feel this is fairly conservative. We've got some piece here around some ranges and things that we might be able to play with and expect, but this is kind of that target level that we'd be looking to. Really wanted to highlight for council here that a system like this, cloud-based software as a service, there are some ongoing operating budget impacts that may be a little bit different than some of the legacy systems we're used to. This $240,000 that you see would be ongoing after the system is live. That includes sort of your basic licensing and support costs from a new vendor. It also includes one new FTE that we would expect to provide that internal technical expertise for the town to be able to manage updates and upgrades and maintain some of those integrations that we're expecting to see in this system. So wanted to flag that as a potential ongoing operating piece. We've got, I don't have the clock in front of me, but I expect we're close to time. We do have some discussion around some of the ranges around these various cost categories. Some of these, might skew things up a little bit higher. Some of them provide an opportunity for some cost savings. Really, we wanted to provide these to administration as a number of project decisions that could be made, but really we are still looking at that overall kind of targeted cost of basket of budgeting. Some of these very specific categories, understanding they may move up and down as it goes through. So we can certainly dig into these, but I do just want to leave lots of time for questions and discussions. So maybe I'll skim these for right now. And that's what we had for you folks. Happy to open up for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll start it off with Councillor Nagel.
I was eagerly waiting to hear my favorite buzzwords, but I don't think I heard. What are you guys doing with AI?
Interesting. AI was a piece we specifically dug into through the requirements process with folks from across the town. We did provide a number of examples from some other communities that we have familiarity and awareness of around what they're doing for AI. Right now, within that requirements piece, AI capabilities is something that would be noted as kind of an optional piece that we would like to see back from the vendor community, so they could tell us how they would integrate it into their work and bring that to the table. It's evolving in the municipal software space. There's a lot of promises. We haven't always necessarily seen the direct impact from vendors on the ground. Most of the municipal initiatives we've seen using AI have been very much built in-house using kind of tools they have access to. We would push the vendor community to show you what they can do.
Okay, take my comments for whatever it's worth, but I think if anybody's looking at reforming their internal tech, I think it's going to be AI first. That's my thinking.
Councillor Reid?
That was short, Margaret. That was going to be a heck of a lot more. So as a member of the Cochrane Planning Commission, and to Morgan's point about the world of AI, I can appreciate that there's a need, but I'm surprised by the results, but I'll learn more as I go. Admittedly, I'm kind of shocked by the price tag, and I'm wondering, does that result in future cost savings from a staffing perspective? And secondly, will you be providing us with, in the world of good, better, best, kind of good, better, best recommendations as opposed to kind of what we're seeing now?
Yeah, so, certainly cost savings is something that could be contemplated out of a system like this. I think it wasn't within the scope of our work, and I'd hesitate to speak for your development community, but if they have similar demands as other development communities that we've worked with, they would probably like to see a focus on enhancement of service versus all-out cost reduction. And I think this allows that. It allows the focus on service delivery, service enhancement. What it absolutely does is it allows for cost avoidance into the future as volumes continue to increase and staff can kind of be contained. That's really that slide that speaks to that.
So there are actual measures of success in terms of ROI then?
There certainly could be. It wasn't within the scope of our work to calculate that, but I think that would be a calculation that could be put together.
And is there a preferred vendor already or system already do you have in mind?
In a short answer, no. We recommended against that. We recommended going with a set of requirements that reflect the town's needs and working through that procurement activity to really let the vendor market come to us.
And when that comes to that, I'm assuming your firm came through an RFP process. Would it likely be that it would be an RFP process for whatever recommendation you would have in terms of a potential or the parameters of a system?
I
or
think
maybe that's
system
a question for administration.
Potentially.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Reid, the firm that was selected did not go through an RFP process. This was not a contract that met the threshold of requiring an RFP. This was a relatively small engagement for this year and was a budget amount $25,000, so it didn't meet the requirement of going through an RFP. We were looking to move with pace so that we could ensure that we had an idea of what a potential budget would be, that we could be prepared for a potential budget request for the next cycle.
Okay, so the short answer is no RFP for them because of the amount. Would there be an RFP process for the system that you would eventually look to purchase?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Reid, absolutely there would be. It's a very high threshold, and I think what our consultants had recommended here really is that some of these questions would be evaluated through the RFP process in an expectation that the potential proponents would speak to the needs and the requirements of Cochrane as an organization, including Councillor Nagel's earlier requirement and interest in artificial intelligence, if that was a priority of council in a new software solution.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions for you. I'm of course always in favor of anything that can help build, efficiency and transparency and accountability to our business processes. And I have to admit, I don't actually know the current processes. Are we still leaning heavily into essentially a paper-based system and email tracking? And we're looking to move from that to a system? It's one giant step for Cochrane.
It would be quite a leap to move to a dedicated system. We use the term manual. I wouldn't use the term paper-based. It is electronic, but it is very much driven by email, smart sheets, and some other tools that are in use, but very much outside that dedicated workflow management system that would help track all the activities associated with it. So I would use the term manual, not paper-based.
Okay, great. And then if we want to measure the success of this, because I don't know this, right now, do we have an idea of how long it takes to process the average application? And then with investing $2 million, are we going to be able to see, like, it's going to go from this much for an application to this much for an application? Are we going to be able to see that and measure that in the KPIs you're coming out of this with?
Right.
Through the chair to Councilor McFadden, we're going to speak to some of that in our presentation for our mid-year reporting, but we do have an idea of what our current average processing times are for the different various ranges of applications, as well as what our targets are and what we need in order to help put ourselves in a position of accomplishing those targets. I think as our consultants had mentioned earlier on in the presentation, there are a number of different ways to get there. In community growth, we're always trying to resist, always looking to human capital and resources as the sole solution to the problem. So investing in technology is a bit of the intent behind this engagement, to identify how do we help increase the efficiency of our current staff to help enable our current resource complement to process more applications, be more effective, be more efficient, and provide a higher level of service with the same amount of people.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'm always a big supporter of that. So if we can invest in that, it's just, as with Councillor Reid, it's a bit of a sticker shot on that $2 million plus operating cost number. And so doing a scan of this, I didn't see anybody else that was coming in close to that. I think Camrose is like $1 million, but I didn't see an operating budget with that. Leduc County is $444,000 capital investment with $100,000 ongoing operation piece. So I'm just trying to understand that. And then when we're usually doing comparables, we're usually looking at Airdrie and Okotoks, and I didn't see those on your list. So I'm just trying to find a way to understand the sticker shock, really.
Yeah, couple pieces in there that we believe explains some of that. Certainly there was an element of wanting to reflect some inflation that we're seeing in the market compared to when those projects were ongoing. Now, some of those are quite recent. We had targeted these municipalities very specifically based on the fact that they had implemented and gone with a variety of different vendors. So that's part of what drove some of our targeting. One of the municipalities that did not respond was with the vendor that is at the higher end of that price point, so we wanted to leave some room, understanding that there was some kind of vendor representation that wasn't within our jurisdictional scan. And the only other thing I would add to that is I think the full budget request really does contemplate a lot of project resourcing that I would speculate may not be fully reflected in some of those other budgeted amounts. So that might explain some of the pieces within that.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I can certainly see that, like in your costing, the backfilling, which I can understand. Yeah. You're going to need our subject matter experts to help you, the vendor, craft the system to be reflective of our needs, which means for the 8 hours that they're putting in making a system get crafted to Cochrane, they're not available to process, so we have to backfill. So I do appreciate the transparency on that lens of it, and yeah, it would be interesting to know if the comparables had also provided that information. So big picture, I'm glad we're looking at any tools to make our staff's lives easier and therefore our applicants' processing time faster, and then our business is more efficient. So big picture, I'm for that. As we get closer to the budget piece, like I said, I would imagine the council today would like to be more comfortable with that number. And I would be interested to know what Okotoks and Airdrie have been using, since they have been comparables for ours in various other elements. So that's my feedback, but yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I had your names in front of me, and then Greg and Trevor, thank you for being here. I just wanted to know before this came back to council at some point at a regular council meeting for a vote to implement, I assume would be the next step. Obviously, we'd have some sort of financial metrics presented. We like to talk in terms of value proposition around here a lot, and so that means can we actually quantify staff being contained and what that means in dollars and cents over something like a council term, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, that sort of thing? Is that what we're likely to see at a future council meeting for whoever decides this?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Wilson, with respect to your question, at this point, we were really just bringing this forward as a piece for information to be, considered in inclusion in a budget request for the next council budget. So, of course, it would be brought forward with all the relevant information that council would require to inform a decision. But at this phase of the engagement, it was really to ask them to come engage with the organization, identify what the organizational readiness was, what our current state was, what the needs would be for a system that would resolve the issues and concerns that we see presented most often, and what the cost would be for a relative sense. I think when we think in terms of cost estimates, this is probably not your class 1 or your class A cost estimate of plus or minus 10%, but it's meant to be a guide that would help refine itself as we went through an RFP process. But the short answer is, yes, we'd be looking to bring a value proposition forward to inform that. But the scale of this engagement, which was just to get an independent arm's length consultant to provide a reasonable estimate, did not include that component. It would have cost us a little bit more, and we were trying to be financially prudent in how we used our consulting budget this year.
Okay, excellent. Just quick follow-up, Mark, on timing. Would the future council likely see this in the next budget, a budgetary item related to this, or is this more long-term than that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, I think that is a decision that administration is still working through and is probably not just mine to make on my own.
Okay, so more to come, and this was just simply an introduction from council, but obviously we're not meant to debate our interest level at this time.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, I think our intent from community growth is we feel that there is a need that we'd like to see included in the next budget request. However, that needs to be weighed against all the other needs in the organization, and I believe discussed with my other colleagues at SLT and executive leadership team as well, to determine if it is a high enough priority to come forward in this current budget request.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the introduction, and it sounds like I agree with most of the table where we just need to hear some more costing out of the value proposition and the pros and cons of making this less of a human enterprise and more of an automated one. So,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mayor Janot?
Yeah, I'm going to say much the same. I don't have a lot of questions. I think statement I'd like to make to administration would be, I'm hearing my colleagues say we have a thirst for return on investment. And that doesn't always have to equate to dollars and cents. It could. I hear FTEs and service delivery enhancement. All of those things I think make up that package. I think if we could rewind the clock, I think why we're having a bit of a sticker shock to this is that and I think this is should make up part of the presentation either at budget or when this comes back to council, is tell the story of the need. What problem are we trying to solve? My interaction with people on the street applying for business licenses, or maybe that's a bad example. Applications in the planning department it's taking longer and longer. So this would address that need as an example. So tell us the story of why we need this platform in the first place. And then I think that fits nicely into the presentation that you've given us tonight around what the solution to that problem is. So I think that should be part of what we're talking about when we get into the next steps of this. Although I do appreciate administration looking into this, it just feels a little bit backwards that maybe we should have been telling that story a little bit sooner before coming with this type of presentation. So putting that aside, I think there are a lot of good things that we're looking for in this particular solution. So just to reference the anecdotal comments I've received in the community from people applying to build a deck or a addition to their home, all the way to a development permit or an area structure plan. I think what I'm hearing is that this will help streamline that for everyone that's interfacing with our planning department. And I think that is a great news story. that, and I think it bears that we take a serious look at this. So I appreciate all the information in the package. There was a ton of it, and a lot of details. So I appreciate your work tonight. Thank you.
Well, I guess that just leaves me, I do have to agree, it would be nice to know what we're trying to solve. The sticker price is definitely a little bit shocking, but, you know, it's the first time out of the gate. I think that the bigger question is that I understand that you'd be looking at like 2.5 FTEs kind of over multiple different departments. That isn't just a one-time cost, because once we hire staff, then staff are here to stay, right? And so I think that there would have to be a lot more information on what the operational effects are by implementing anything like this over a long period of time, not over just 1 year. Yeah, it's going to be a big decision, and like my colleagues have said, it's going to have to be weighed, I believe, heavily compared to all our other capital demands that are coming this way. That list is long and it's expensive, and it's just going to be a matter of what fits in. But again, it's not going to be us deciding that. But I'll be interested to see what future council decides. But I think that my advice would be just don't bring it back over a 3-year look. Like, there are questions that if you're hiring staff and bringing people on, that's way longer than a 3-year ask, right? That has consequences into future budgets. So just something to think about for future council members.
And thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think one thing I would add to that as well is that to give a level of confidence for council, there are lots of range of alternatives. I think this was the recommendation and the based on the relevant information at hand of our consultant, but there are lots of variations to how we can provide support and backfill and recruit and bring in staff that doesn't need to be a permanent long-term solution. So I really appreciate your comment, and I think there's lots of alternatives to explore as we continue on the journey.
Council, any other questions or comments? Mr. Krasinski, did you get what you needed from council to move forward, kind of?
To the chair, we did. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, and I believe that we will take at least 9-minute break, or I think I might be in trouble if I don't allow council to go have a bio break as well as staff. So we'll be back at Welcome back. It is 8:01. Sorry, everybody, we were 1 minute late. We are moving on to item 5B, the Community Growth Mid-Year Report, and I'd like to call Mr. Krasinski, Director of Community Growth, to the podium to begin his presentation.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for having members of Community Growth Management Team and myself here tonight to present our mid-year report to Council. When I joined administration in 2023, I committed to providing Council with mid-year and year-end reports in Q3 and Q1 of each year in the results-based accountability format. The RBA format focuses on 3 core metrics to represent the performance of a department towards its primary objectives, measured in how much, how well, and is anyone better off. I'm joined here tonight by Justin Perrin, Manager of Safety Codes, Nicole Hanna, Manager of Economic Development, and Rob Auclair, Manager of Planning Services, who will walk you through highlights of the results-based accountability reports for the respective departments. After a brief overview of community growth, we will be alternating through presenters of each manager as they present their department. I would ask that you please hold your questions to the end, at which point we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. The purpose of this slide is to provide a high-level overview of the relationship between the 3 departments that make up community growth. The community growth cycle begins with planning services, with the processing and review of applications for the highest order plans in the planning hierarchy, namely area structure plans and neighborhood plans, as well as land use, subdivision, and development permit applications. These inform the building permit applications reviewed and processed by safety codes, which together enable construction activity that contributes to Cochrane's economic vitality in the form of construction jobs and investment in the community. Once complete, these developments establish new or improved employment centers that create the opportunity for even more investment and job creation in Cochrane, which ultimately leads to the need for more development to provide housing for employees to fill new jobs created by investment and talent attraction enabled by expanded employment lands. Community growth identified 3 primary operational objectives in the Council-approved budget for 2025, all of which have completed milestones on schedule or are in progress. These objectives were the implementation, maintenance, and sustainment of Envision Cochrane 2050, which is approved by Council in March of this year, completion of an economic development strategy, which we recently awarded to a consultant who will be initiating this work imminently, and the development and implementation of risk mitigation strategies and resourcing plans to address increasing risks to business continuity, service levels, and customer service resulting from increasing volumes of work related to the pace of development and investment in Cochrane. Now I'll hand it over to Nicole Hanna, Manager of Economic Development, who will walk you through the mid-year highlights for economic development. As a reminder, please hold your questions to the end, at which point we would be happy to address any unanswered questions you may have.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to present the Economic Development Mid-Year 2025 Update. Today's overview highlights key business license trends, retention and growth, accomplishments to date, and risks we are actively managing. Economic growth in the first half of 2025 shows promising progress and record-setting numbers. This reflects confidence businesses have in Cochrane as a place to grow and thrive. One of the key indicators of growth is our business license numbers. As of July 2025, Cochrane has 2,361 active business licenses. This is only 35 licenses short of last year's total amount. This represents a year-over-year increase of nearly 6%. Of these licenses, 71% are issued to Cochrane residents, while 29% are non-residential businesses supporting our local economy. We remain on track to reach 2,500 licenses by year-end, continuing the steady growth trend that we've seen since 2020. How well is represented by business retention and new starts. Retention remains strong, with 85.7% of businesses renewing their license in 2025. This aligns with our 5-year average and demonstrates stability in the business community. At the same time, new business starts are contributing significantly, with 19.5% of current licenses representing new ventures. The balance of retention and attraction show both a resilient existing base and fresh entrepreneurial activity. Sustainable economic development relies on a balance that supports the community financially while providing a good quality of life for residents. What we see here is the increase in investment in the community. Looking at better off measures, we see strong indicators that economic activity is contributing directly to community vitality. Projected non-residential construction values remain high, reflecting investor confidence and continued growth in both residential and commercial development. These investments, paired with revenue gains and new partnerships, show that Cochrane is not only experiencing growth in numbers, but also realizing tangible benefits in jobs, services, and long-term economic resilience. We continue to monitor risks that could impact service delivery. Business continuity and resourcing at the station remain high priority concerns as demands for programs evolve. In addition, data technology poses challenges to efficient and service levels, and to mitigate these risks, we are aligning staff resources, strengthening performance metrics, and we will also evaluate the impact of the technology solutions in other community growth departments to mitigate similar risks to business continuity and service levels. Economic development accomplishments include, but are not limited to, our participation in the Invest Greater Calgary initiative, the 3-year pilot project focused on regional partnerships and foreign direct investment, approved by Council July 14th of this year. The Cochrane Business Incubator has continued to contribute to the creation of 30 new jobs and a total revenue growth of $889,000, which aligns with our Prairie Scan commitments. We have secured $75,000 in the Northern Region Economic Development Grant for matched funding to support the initiative of a long-term strategic plan. And we've continued progress working with post-secondary partnership opportunities, University of Calgary, Haskayne School of Business, and we had a student in with the Project Propel Group. These milestones reflect both measurable impacts and long-term partnerships that strengthen Cochrane's economic foundation. Up next, we have Rob Auclair.
Thank you, Nicole. Good evening once again, Deputy Mayor and members of Council. I'm happy to be here tonight to discuss Planning Services 2025 mid-year RBA metrics. How much? As of mid-year, Planning Services has received 104 development permit applications, 385 compliance applications, 22 subdivision and statutory, non-statutory applications, as well as presented to Council 26 times. This was all completed by a staff complement of 10. And aside from the council reports, we're seeing application amounts trending in a similar fashion than 2024. How well? This chart compares the average timelines or average number of days it takes to deem a development permit complete and release a notice of decision compared to the MGA legislated timelines. So this is part of the story for the technology solution as well. On the left side of the chart, you will see the number of days required to complete the work, and on the right is the percentage of the time that planning is actually achieving that. At mid-year, Planning Services is slightly below the MGA timeline when looking at the averages of 104 development permits. So it's taken us 17.8 days to deem an application complete and 56.5 days to notice of decision. While this is the average of all the 104 development permits received, only about 60% are actually meeting that target of the MGA timelines of 20 and 60 days. These metrics are very similar to the levels that we saw last year. Are we better off? Through the subdivision and development permit process, Planning Services has enabled the addition of approximately 1,100 dwelling units. By year end, this number will increase, leading to approximately 2,200 new dwelling units enabled through the planning process. This is important as we can provide this information to our partners in safety codes. This will help them forecast and prepare for future years as we typically see a building permit 12 to 18 months after this process. In addition to the day-to-day operational work, Planning Services was also able to complete and advance some high-profile projects in 2025. the adoption of Envision Cochrane 2050. Planning Services is also currently completing the Envision Cochrane 2050 Implementation, Maintenance, and Sustainment Plan Program Charter, anticipating that this will be completed Q4 of 2025. Technology Needs Assessment, we've already had a presentation on that, so I won't go into detail. Fifth Ave Functional Study, this work is on track and will be presented to Council in Q4 or in Q1 2026. Business Continuity, Planning Services has supported organizational business continuity, advancing important projects such as the Joint Use Planning Agreement, Intermunicipal Development Plan, the Bow River Strategy, and work with the Government of Alberta, just to name a few. Of course, there have been a few notable challenges in 2025. The main emerging risks that we are tracking are related to business continuity and resourcing, lack of workflow technology, and customer service efficiency, as we are always trying to improve this. These risks have a medium to high likelihood with high impacts on planning services. Planning is looking to mitigate these risks through resource planning, investments into technology solutions, and continuous process improvements. In conclusion, 2025 has again been a year of high application volume. We will continue to focus on process improvements, advancing the implementation, maintenance, and sustainment of Envision Cochrane 2050, looking into key technology investments to provide better quality, consistency, and customer service through the application process, completing a resourcing plan to ensure strong business continuity, succession planning, and investment in staff, and work on key updates to the land use bylaw and encroachment policy. Thank you very much for your time. I will now pass it over to Justin Perrin, Manager of Safety Codes.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. My name is Justin Perrin, Manager of Safety Codes, and thank you for the opportunity to present our 2025 year-end or mid-year report. Cochrane's an accredited municipality with the Safety Codes Council of Alberta. Through this accreditation, Safety Codes authorizes construction by reviewing and issuing permits for building, electrical, plumbing, and gas work in town. Once permits are in place, inspections are carried out at key stages to confirm compliance with provincially adopted codes and standards. These services are essential. Without them, homes and businesses cannot be built or occupied, and growth would be impacted. Ongoing growth within Cochrane over the subsequent years relates to continued increases in dwelling units, permits, and inspections this year, with 447 dwelling units issued, 3,633 permits issued, and 6,512 inspections completed by mid-year. If these trends continue, by year end, we would have issued roughly 900 dwelling units, 7,000 permits, and over 12,000 inspections completed. Our quality management plan outlines our legislative minimum service delivery standards related to permit issuance and inspection scheduling timeframes. So far, 91.9% of building permits have been issued within 14 days of application, and 96.7% of inspections have been completed within 5 days of the requested date. These achievements reflect our team's dedication and efficiency, even under record-setting demand. Despite investment in an additional Safety Codes officer position, the number of permits per employee is projected to increase in 2025. The department's current staffing levels are not fully aligned with the median staffing ratio of comparable municipalities, and we're moving away from our desired trend, which impacts the department's capacity to manage the growing workload effectively. This puts additional stress on existing staff, especially as permits and inspections continue to rise. While this may appear as value for our citizens, the real risk here is service delivery and business continuity. The focus here is the right level of service. "2025 has been a productive year for Safety Codes. We strengthened business continuity by onboarding a new Safety Codes officer and adding 2 additional contract agencies to assist with the inspection workload. Despite record-setting demand, we maintained QMP compliance above target levels for inspection booking timeframes. A major step forward in efficiency was the deployment of a permit software update in the third quarter of 2025, which allows online payment and document uploads through the new permitting portal. Finally, we continued investing in our people by supporting employees in our professional development and ongoing safety code officer training. Several challenges are emerging in 2025. Business continuity and resourcing remain a concern, with record-setting volumes placing ongoing pressure on staff's capacity. This is considered a medium to high risk as demand continues to rise. Service levels are also under strain, with limited capacity making it more difficult to consistently meet quality management plan timeframes for both permit issuance and inspection bookings. In addition, non-compliance issues are on the rise. These are related to inspections identifying code infractions, with a projected 76% increase compared to 2024. While these risks are being actively managed, they highlight the need for continued investment in resourcing. Looking ahead, we're strengthening our resourcing plan to meet demand and sustain service continuity. At the same time, we are prioritizing succession planning to build organizational resiliency and ensure we have the expertise needed long-term. Continuous education remains a cornerstone for our approach, supporting staff with training and professional development required to uphold the highest standards. Finally, through education initiatives and civic literacy, we are equipping citizens, homeowners, and builders with the knowledge that they need to navigate permit and code compliance. Thank you, and I will pass this on to Mark for final comment.
The purpose of this slide is to highlight the projected population growth resulting from the actual and estimated dwelling units identified by planning services and safety codes in their presentations, which were approved in 2024, since the 2024 census of August last year to July 1st, 2025, and projected for approval by the end of this year. Community growth is forecasting 900 dwelling units approved in 2025, which equates to approximately 2,179 new residents, based on an estimate of approximately 2.42 individuals per unit, accounting for a 2% vacancy rate. This would put Cochrane's population at a little over 40,000 by the end of 2025, representing a 5.5% growth from the August 2024 census to July 1, 2025, and 5.7% population growth for 2025. As you heard from members of my management team, the highest risks in business continuity are service level, business continuity, and customer service. We're endeavoring to mitigate these risks through investment in technology and requests for additional positions to help address concerns relating to a dip in our ability to meet our QMP compliance targets and our targets for permits per safety codes officer ratio to maintain business continuity. We're also investing in low-cost, low-risk mitigation activities, which are not highlighted in the report, such as improvements to our processes and communication of planning applications requirements to increase the quality and completeness of applications, although these have a much smaller impact on investment in modernizing our technology and software solutions to be comparable with peer municipalities and best practices. Lastly, I wanted to give a brief highlight of our community growth mid-year accomplishments. I won't belabor the ones that are already mentioned, but a couple of others I'd like to focus on is the Station Plaza activation with bringing different members of our business community out to the plaza to operate food trucks and sell coffee and some refreshments. The school site status report, which is the first ever presented in this community that I'm aware of earlier this year by our planning services team. The Safety Codes technology upgrade with their software solution that enables online payments and submission of online plans. And of course, the Invest Greater Calgary Economic Development Partnership, which enables us to amplify our investment in economic development by leveraging the investment and expertise of other neighboring communities to have an outsized impact on investment attraction, retention, and job creation in the region. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and my management team is here for questions as well.
Thank you to you all for your presentations. It's always informative to hear how much growth has happened in such a short period of time. I will turn it over to Councillor Reid. You're up first.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to you and your team members for all the work that has transpired on this. The Deputy Mayor has indicated that it is a lot of work and a lot of volume. As important as and interesting as safety codes and planning services are, and just in the essence of time, my question is about economic development. I wonder if you just add a little more color about the 7 recent graduates from the incubator program. Just what's become of them? What are they part of the kind of 30 new jobs that have been created in the community? I'm just wondering if you could add a little bit more to that. This kind of segues back to a comment that Councillor Wilson was asking about earlier about the benefits of that incubator. Again, not that I'm questioning it, I'm just adding, from a public perspective, adding a little more color to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to add some insight, and then Nicole Hanna is ready to provide any insight for the things that I missed. So the approximately $890,000 in revenue growth, that is representative of the growth in revenue of the members of the incubator over the period of time that they spent in the incubator.
Oh,
so
cool.
some of them started in 2023 and stayed within the incubator throughout 2024, graduated in around Q1, Q2, mostly Q2, 2025. So that represents the revenue growth they realized during the program. We intend to continue to measure all graduates from the program year over year, asking them what revenue growth they've realized, acknowledging that this journey doesn't just end when you finish the incubator. The lessons that they learn and the foundational information that they get while they're in there, those experiences, will continue to have impact over time. So that $890,000 is directly resulted from, is the direct revenue growth of the members of the incubator. And the 30 jobs created are the jobs created by the members of the incubator while they were in the incubator and after they had left the incubator as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and do we have, I mean, just not to belabor the point, but do we have a wall of success? I noticed Councillor Wilson again referring to the Velocity experience in Kitchener-Waterloo, and the mayor and I had an opportunity of visiting a like facility in Ottawa and noticed that there was quite a wall of success. In fact, the Ottawa one has a really predominant one. Do we do that, or we recognize them in some way? Because this is such a good news story. Again, we were talking earlier, the mayor in particular was referring to it, that we just seem to go on and on and on, but we never really talk about where we've been and what success we've had. And again, maybe this has come up in the newspaper and I've missed it. I wouldn't be the first, but I mean, are we celebrating these successes?
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Reid, what we're currently doing is we're working on a plan for how we want to celebrate them. I think we've heard at a previous council meeting the interest in a wall of success. So now that we've had the first cohort go through, our focus has been predominantly on planning and programming that first cohort and the other areas of economic development. We're now working on the completion of our communication change management plan for the business incubator, which includes highlighting how we're going to celebrate successes, how we market and promote the success of the program, and how we want to recognize the graduates from the program in the station, whether that's in the incubator itself or in other areas of the station. But a wall that acknowledges the graduates is absolutely something that we're considering.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you very much, team. Just a couple of questions. Well, first of all, you certainly drove home the point of needing the technological investment to make life happen, and you're certainly, delivering with a lean, mean, effective team. So kudos for that. And yeah, certainly made the case for your point there. Questions on some of your future projects there. What is one of the projects you said you were going to look on was your encroachment plan or encroachment study? What is that project?
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden, one of the things we're looking at there is the municipality of Cochrane has a encroachment policy, but we don't actually have a bylaw or anything behind it. What we're looking at is in those instances where somebody accidentally builds a structure, say a house or a building or a garage that encroaches into public property, that could be right of way, that could be into a public park, providing opportunities to formalize that encroachment legally. It both protects our liability as a municipality in the event that a member of the public injures themselves, and also provides an avenue for a homeowner or a property owner to formalize that encroachment without any risk of possibly having to remove their structure in that. So, and right now it really is just a review. We're talking about a charter that's being led by our development technicians team that's evaluating the need for any potential exploration of changes or amendments or expansion. Where that's at right now.
All right, sounds kind of like a cleaning up of some of our bylaws that have fallen behind. So, fun note: I once had a job enforcing encroachments registrations. So there you go. In your land use bylaw update, is there an opportunity to look at, I know we'd pulled the Western Heritage Design Guidelines out of the land use bylaw. And in retrospect, I'm not actually convinced that was a right move. Is there a way in this review to bring that discussion to the fore again? Or how would the council let introduce that conversation again?
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden, any feedback that we get from council at any moment in time is feedback that we will take and incorporate into our review as feedback that's relevant to explore. I think it'll always come down to capacity and competing priorities as to which changes we implement and which ones we recommend moving forward with ahead of others. So we have a long list that we have both from the planning services team, other internal interest holders, members of the Cochrane Development Liaison Group, from our building and development community, and of course feedback that we have from council. So the periodic annual review has already been started underway by planning services. We ran out of a bit of runway in order to bring that back to council in the way we would like to, with bringing it back to a committee of the whole, taking that back, refining it a little bit more, and then bringing back final updates. So we are a bit behind schedule of where we'd like to be in an annual process, but we envision some proposed changes and recommendations coming forward with the new council in probably Q4.
Excellent. And then I think I wrote it down correctly. You say you've done 12,000 inspections last year to date?
12,000? Yeah, 12,000 projected by year end. We're at a little bit over 6,000, I think, currently at mid-year. And then we're expecting it to double by year end, which is consistent with the flow of applications we've seen in previous years.
Okay. And when we're saying we're doing inspections, those aren't necessarily all in-person inspections, are they? Or I guess I don't actually know what an inspection looks like.
All of the inspections are in person by a safety codes officer. There are instances where Justin Perry, manager of safety codes, alluded to where the frequency of non-compliance infractions has been increasing, which is where a builder doesn't build something to specking and in alignment with the safety codes requirements, in which case we have to go back and re-inspect. So part of our increase in inspections is non-compliance and non-conformity of some of our builders. So we are looking at an educational program to try and increase compliance on the first inspection to reduce re-inspections now as well.
I'd be tempted to do fines for builders, but
we do have mechanisms in place for that as well, Councillor McFadden, and we do charge for inspections with increasing costs for inspections based on the number of non-compliances that we have. But we're also trying to go with the we'll call it a carrot approach as well, of just trying to ensure that we're providing the best available information to ensure that we reduce the frequency of error as much as possible.
Okay. Yeah, team. Yeah, thank you. Very much for the update and for answering my questions. Much appreciated. And like I said, kudos for the great work you are delivering. I know you'd identified that you're hitting most of the provincial targets, and there's some that not so much. But I think we're delivering really good service to the people of Cochrane, so great job on that. And if we can find a way to give you some better tools so you can do your work more efficiently, I'm sure we'll get closer to hitting that provincial mark. So thank you so much.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. Your presentation there, your four-part presentation, generated a lot of questions. I've just distilled it down to my biggest two, my favorite two though. You'd mentioned somewhere around 2,100 persons a year moving to Cochrane. Off the top of your head, Mark, do you have, can you remember what our current, let's call it area structure plan approved capacity is for Cochrane, or how much housing is left in our long-term radar? I know we've had that presentation before to council, but do you happen to remember that number?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Wilson, I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but I believe we had something around a 7-year land supply, is off the top of my head from the growth study, what we had available for enabled through future area structure plans. So the number of dwelling units at 2,100 is really based on an internal estimated projection of knowing that we're highly likely to do 900 dwelling units approved by the end of the year. And then we estimate an amount of people per dwelling unit at around 2.42 people. And that's just something that our subject matter experts in planning services and safety codes spend a lot of time on, is trying to determine how much population growth will result from the units that they approve.
So somewhat safe to say 7-year land supply, 2,100 a year or something in the 15,000 range without any further approvals? Is that, am I in a ballpark of relevance there?
And I through the chair to Councilor Wilson, I think the growth studies estimate is, I believe, takes into consideration future area structure plan approvals as well, not just the ones that are approved. So there are some that don't have approval yet, and that's at the discretion of council.
If I may, this is tickling my memory, so I will have to maybe verify and update this, but I believe that without approval of any additional area structure plans, that the population number is somewhere around between 60 and 65,000 people. Again, that depends a little bit on final built form. So I think that was the crux of your question there, Councillor Wilson.
Right, so maybe closer to 20,000 than 15?
That would be, I think, a little bit closer, but that's tickling, like I said, the back of my memory, so we'll verify that.
Yeah, excellent. And then my top question I just have to ask is CRL 2.0, with how impactful CRL 1.0 was. Can you just talk about that a little bit? What areas we're thinking, scope, timelines, anything you can give me?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, we are currently received a draft report that we're reviewing right now, and the scope of the draft report was to do an analysis to determine how likely it is that we would be successful in application for a second community revitalization levy, and if we were successful, which areas in the municipality we should look at. That is intended to come back to council in Q4. At this point, we haven't completed a full administrative review, so I would be cautious about giving any sort of specificity to it until we can give a full report to council. However, I can confirm that we looked at a broad range of different communities. We didn't keep it narrowly scoped just to a few communities in the center of Cochrane.
Good enough. I had to try, I think. Thank you for giving me what you know.
Thank you.
Councillor Nagel?
Yeah, just some questions for clarity. So the 900 projected dwellings this year, did you say that's a record for Cochrane?
Through the chair to Councillor Nagel, the 900 is 2014 was technically a larger year. It's going back quite a ways. I think it was talking about 10, 11 years ago. I think we did around 990 dwelling units in that year. It was a record. On recent memory, that's a record. The record, I think, was more related to the number of inspections, is what we were talking about. Yeah.
Okay, and then just trying to make sense of the presentation, could you please switch back to the table? Yeah, sorry. And there was a few slides like this. So where it says high risk is what, and this wasn't in our agenda package, at least I didn't see it. This is suggesting that given the growth pressures we have in Cochrane, these areas are at high risk without further investment, or can you further explain what that high risk level is?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Nagel, I think this is a bit of me having an internal audit background, an internal audit designation. Typically when you have like a risk management plan or an enterprise risk management register, you'd look at risks essentially to service lines. So I tried to summarize this just at a community growth level. These are the biggest risks to our service lines and community growth. It's not meant to reflect biggest risks to the organization or biggest risks to the community as a whole, but biggest risks to our scope of work in community growth, where we're at right now. So just looking at risks and the description of what that risk is, the impact and likelihood, which leads to the risk level, whether we see that risk trending upward or remaining flat or decreasing, and then a little bit more about what we're doing to mitigate it, which you have 3 classic approaches to mitigation. You can avoid a risk, you can accept a risk, or you can try to mitigate a risk to reduce its impact. So in these situations, we've identified actions that we're taking to try and mitigate them, but summarized at a very high level, of course.
So to put it into layman's terms, for this slide here, are all 3 of these sections at high risk of being too overburdened? Is that basically?
Through the chair to Councillor Nagel, I think all 3 sections are at risk of the volume of work exceeding the capacity of employees with it.
Okay. Through the chair, I feel like our CEO is queuing up to.
Well, I think I've just added that. I think so what that means is there begins to be service impacts, which means the quality of service might go down. I think that's what we're talking about when we say what is the actual outcome of realizing that risk, is the quality or ability to provide the quality of the service or our ability to provide service starts to go down. So we would continue to keep doing the work, obviously, but how long it takes or how comprehensive the work could be, those things start to suffer unless we employ mitigation strategies as Mark has laid out.
Okay, thanks. I understand. Thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Okay, I just wanted to add that on the weekend, I spoke to one of the people that own a business that was working in through the incubator, and he was thrilled with the program and all the services that he received, seeing success, growth, and a promising future. So it was really good to get his feedback. My only question was around the Fifth Avenue study. What's involved with that?
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Flowers, the Fifth Avenue Functional Study is a really early stage review of a concept for Fifth Avenue based on what the design could look like if we wanted to improve traffic flow and pedestrian connectivity and multimodal transportation. That really is that first step to look at when we have redevelopment along Fifth Avenue and we look at addressing what might be a future pinch point informed by the corridor study connecting Cochrane previously completed, what type of work we should be looking at. So a functional study would be followed up later by a tentative design and a detailed design, but this is really kind of the visioning component of it that'll help scope what that road might look like in the future.
Would that involve any information from the public that live along there or have businesses there?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Flowers, it will, through multiple phases of the engagement. At this point, we're just started doing some design work. There's some engagement that'll be planned for later in the year as well with directly adjacent property owners. And then as the project goes through being evaluated against other capital projects in the municipality, there'd be additional engagement with a broader community as well. There's multiple, this is the beginning of, I'd say, 3 or 4 different checkpoints before it got to the point of any level of construction.
Great, thank you.
Without seeing any more lights on, I do have a couple questions of my own. Going back to the safety codes of the 76% higher non-compliance inspection issues, have we seen an uptake in legal costs towards the town for those non-compliance issues?
To the Deputy Mayor, no, we have not.
Okay. I think that, and I understand that once the ball's rolling, you know, you can't really stop growth, but some of the stuff that I have seen in my other job as well as the council role and hearing from the general public is that, you know, sometimes growth, expedited growth isn't always the best growth. Mistakes happen, things get missed. I give kudos, and I think I say this almost all the time to the safety codes team, because if there's not eyes and checks and balances going on all the time, and I mean practically, you know, standing on the site, things get missed. And that's a scary part of where growth goes. Is there any way or any talk about, obviously not stopping, but trying to slow the roll a bit just so that our teams can catch up without always having to increase more bodies, increase more staff, but taking a look as to what kind of the overall big picture of Cochrane could look like? Is there any talk of that?
Yeah, to the Deputy Mayor, I think to the first part about the 76% non-compliance, I think this really is, to me, reflects the due diligence of the safety codes team, that the non-compliances aren't being missed and aren't being overlooked due to volume. They're taking the time and effort, and they're making the efforts to make sure that builders come back and address those non-compliances. I do want to convey, I think, to council and to the community that nothing is getting built that doesn't comply with the safety code standards and building code of Canada. That is not allowed, but when we have a non-compliance, we continue to work with them until they get in compliance. Otherwise, they don't end up getting a final occupancy permit. With respect to what mechanisms we have, I think we've had some discussions. There are requirements in the Municipal Government Act, which I think Rob O'Clair Planning Services spoke to as well, about the timelines that we need to hit and the expectations, you know, at a provincial level in the development community of we're mandated by legislation to deem an application complete within 20 days and to have a decision within 60. So once we start the ball rolling with area structure plans and neighborhood plans and previous approvals, some of them go back decades or more that we're working through. There's not a lot that we can do to really stop development. It's really the pace of investment and the desire of the builders to move forward. If we try to be a little bit more aggressive in certain areas, we would put ourselves at risk of being appealed and likely end up with the same outcome of an approval if that decision wasn't based on solid foundations of non-compliance with our land use bylaw or not complying with other requirements that we have. And that's one thing, you know, we do try and maintain, which gets more challenging with increasing volumes of work and a relatively similar staffing level, is pushing builders and developers to a higher standard in our community. But we do try and do that. I have a lot of faith in all these managers of the respective departments to try and raise the bar in every application we have. But we can only raise the bar reasonably within the bylaw and requirements that we have.
Yeah, fair enough, and perhaps some strengthening there for future council can change a little bit of that. And I only have one last question. Do you know the number of secondary suite applications that might have come forward through the last 6 months?
I do, and I'm going to ask Rob O'Clair. I think he's got the number handy.
To Deputy Mayor, I don't have the number offhand. We are seeing a lower amount than last year, but with secondary suites, the applications, they ebb and flow throughout the years depending on the desire of the community, for sure. We are seeing a little bit less. I can get you that number for sure. It will just be at a future date, of course.
Yeah, it'd be interesting just to see maybe the last couple years or few years, just the changes of that.
Absolutely. We can get you a year over year for a comparison.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
And that leads back to Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you very much. As part of your presentation, I think you'd identified that you were slightly understaffed. Can you just give me a quick update of your current staff component? Are you, I mean, I know management is going to balance off what's going to come to the next budget, but are you currently at your full staffing budget-wise?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden, can I just make sure I understand the question? The question is, have we filled all the open positions that we have? Is that the question?
That's where I was trying to go. Excellent
Okay.
translation job.
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden, all of our open positions are filled. We recently filled a development technician position. We have one position that's currently on leave. We've had some, knock on wood, good success with fewer leaves this year than we've had in previous years. So fortunate to have good health.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looks like that exhausts questions from council. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Up next is item 5C, ice surface preliminary information. Michelle Ambrose, Director of Parks and Active Living, to the podium for your presentation on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and Council. This evening's presentation is to respond to Council's notice of motion from May 12th. Council asked administration to explore the feasibility of adding ice surfaces on town-owned lands adjacent to the Cochrane Arena, including potential costs and site suitability. So as part of the Parks, Culture, and Active Living Master Plan, we've been taking a closer look at both current and future ice needs in the community. Through that work, we've learned that while the Cochrane Arena is utilized 43% of its available booking time, it continues to be well used and valued. Demand is gradually increasing across all user groups, from hockey and ringette to figure skating and recreational leagues. We're also starting to see some pressure points, such as wait lists for organized programs and families needing to travel to nearby communities for additional ice time. As part of this preliminary review, administration has confirmed that the town-owned parcel adjacent to the existing Cochrane Arena appears to be a viable location for potential expansion. At this early stage, we haven't identified any obvious barriers to development, but a full technical analysis would still be required before moving forward. That work would look at things like geotechnical conditions, underground utilities, servicing, and traffic impacts. Completing these studies as part of a feasibility process is important because it also ensures we're aligning with future development permit requirements right from the start. If council chooses to proceed with a twin arena on this site, these assessments would position us to move through the development permitting process more smoothly and reduce potential delays later on in the process. Administration is recommending a comprehensive feasibility study to ensure council has all of the information needed before making any long-term decisions about new ICE facilities. This study isn't about slowing things down, it's about setting council up for success and helps avoid costly surprises later. By taking this step, we can confirm whether a twin arena is the right solution, understand the true costs and operational impacts, and make sure the facility meets the needs of all user groups. Administration has looked at recent provincial capital cost estimates for ICE facilities across Alberta. We're seeing single sheet ice arenas typically ranging from 20 to 40 million, and twin arenas ranging more broadly, typically 50 to 75 million, depending on scope and included amenities. So I have 3 examples of what I've looked at across the province. In the municipality of Wood Buffalo, the Northside Twin Arena is currently under construction. This project is more focused on a community scale for ice facilities rather than large multi-use centers. It includes 2 ice sheets seating around 300 per rink, concessions, locker rooms, and roughly 250 parking stalls. The estimated cost is approximately $50 million, and the project broke ground in September 2024. It's expected to be open by June 2026, which puts the construction period just under the 2-year mark. And this example does give us an example of a leaner twin arena model without the broader multi-use amenities. In Spruce Grove, their new facility, Heavy Metal Place, opened earlier this year and is a good example of a multi-use model. The project includes one NHL-sized ice surface as well as a community ice surface, complementary amenities, a black box theater, a public art gallery, and a satellite library branch. Because of the scope, the total investment for this is about $85 million, and the project took roughly 2.5 to 3 years to complete from design to opening. Lloydminster's Synovus Energy Hub is another good point of comparison. It's still under construction now, and it's planned for opening in October of 2025. This facility includes 2 indoor ice surfaces. One has 2,500 seats with expandable up to 4,500, and a smaller 500-seat community rink. There is also outdoor seasonal rink and expanded event hosting capacity. Because of its larger spectator spaces and event infrastructure, the total investment here is approximately $101 million. So administration has also been working with Cochrane Minor Hockey. They've been very proactive in developing a preliminary design concept in partnership with Eagle Builders, and they've shared this information with administration. Their concept includes 2 NHL-sized ice surfaces, seating for approximately 1,400 spectators, 8 change rooms, a dryland training gym, multi-purpose spaces, concessions, and other supporting amenities. They've also indicated that Eagle Builders is a prefab delivery model, and it could allow for the building shell to be completed within about 12 months. There are important considerations for council. While prefab can speed up the construction phase, timelines for site servicing, permitting, and commissioning remain unchanged. So a realistic full delivery would still be closer to 2 years. Although Eagle Builders is referenced in the proposal, the town is legislatively required to follow public procurement rules. If council chooses to move forward with this project, we can't directly award the contract to a specific builder. Instead, the town would be required to issue a formal competitive procurement process to ensure fairness, transparency, and compliance. Additionally, any future facility should be planned to support a range of users, from organized sports to casual skaters and recreational activities, to maximize usage. Today's presentation is for information purposes only. On September 8th, administration will return to council with a recommendation to launch a comprehensive feasibility study. Will the Parks, Culture, and Active Living Master Plan confirm that demand for ice is strong? The master plan operates at a strategic community-wide level. It tells us what the community values and where pressures exist, but does not determine how, where, or what scale of investment is most appropriate. A feasibility study adds value by providing the site-specific and technical analysis we need before making any major commitments. including community engagement at a project level, especially important given this site is surrounded by 3 schools and sits in the middle of a residential area. Site servicing and infrastructure assessments, including utilities, traffic flow, access, and parking needs. Evaluating appropriate facility scale and programming to balance organized sport, casual skating, and broader recreation. Providing detailed capital and operating cost projections to inform future budget planning. If council chooses to proceed on September 8th, we can begin the procurement process early in 2025 to secure a qualified consultant to lead the study by using the Parks and Active Living operational budget to fund the work, or ensure that all findings are ready for consideration in the 2026 capital budget. Thank you, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thank you. That was really sobering. So if approved, would the results of the feasibility study take into consideration all the recreational needs of our community and put it in priority? My concern here is that, well, twofold. One is the concern about the cost of this and the potential cost of or other recreation facilities that we need. We know Horse Creek Road Park and other facilities, and just what burden that would place on the taxpayers of the community. But more importantly, the concern is that if we need to kind of be able to balance this in terms of being able to, the public perception. So if we go ahead with the feasibility study, there's going to be pressure, I'm sure, if there isn't already, for additional ice services, but it needs to be, I think, taken into consideration of all of our recreational community needs and not blown out of proportion. So is there some way of being able to deal with that in terms of the public's perception from your perspective or experience?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Reid, so the Parks, Culture and Active Living Master Plan is doing that broader community needs assessment. We are working through getting all of the information to council right now, and there is a list that we can reshare with you. It was shared earlier this summer of the priority needs of all of the different recreational amenities. Ice Arenas does land on a high priority inside of that list, among with many other different type of recreational needs, indoor and outdoor. So that data will actually help us identify various things, but a deeper dive, the feasibility study will give us a deeper dive into exactly what should happen on this site.
If I may, sorry, through the chair, if I can just add to that, Councillor Reid, I think that certainly from administration's perspective, comprehensive decision-making typically yields the best long-term results. I think what an attempt here was done to show what the pathway to an expedited decision on this might look like. But I think you've identified, in a general sense, we would want to consider not just the programming needs, but also the budgetary priorities. And so encapsulating these types of decisions into those larger processes is typically always recommended by administration, but we wanted to highlight what the pathway would look like should council choose to go in that direction.
Fair enough. I had one more supplemental question. So in looking at some of the examples you provided, there were a combination of like, it just wasn't 2 ice surfaces, it was something else. And my concern is if we're looking at 2 ice surfaces, is this really the best location, right? Maybe it should be a multi-use building in a different location. And so spending $200 or $150,000 to $200,000 on this particular location, with that in mind, I really need to think about that personally.
Thank you.
Mayor Janine?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you following up. This was generated by a notice of motion that I put on the floor. And I had a couple questions. First of all, this was never intended to jump the queue for the master plan. This was to look, the whole basis of my notice of motion was to see if this was a feasible location, and you've answered that question, and I appreciate that. My question then after that is, and maybe we haven't done that work yet, and I think you just mentioned that to Councillor Reid, but the other locations that we are in control of or municipally owned, do we have any others of this size or that would have the ability to house such a twin facility, or even another single ice surface for that matter?
Through the deputy mayor to the mayor, so there are, off the top of my head, there is some MR land up in the Towers Trail area, but needing to do like a deeper dive and a full site-specific study is really like a requirement to understand if it is actually feasible to this location or any other location for all of the other things that I mentioned. So the geotechnical, the traffic assessment, the utilities and site servicing.
Yeah, yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we are very limited in locations. You could come up with one. There might be one other potentially. The examples that you shared tonight, I think are good as far as you know, relevancy on the cost to produce such a facility. But the first thing that jumped at me was the Lloydminster example. That's a massive site. I don't think that we could even probably shoehorn that into the site that we're talking about here, but I did appreciate it from a cost perspective. So I think the point is that we're very limited in costs. I was surprised at the cost of a twin arena, but I don't know why I continue to be surprised as with the inflation and all the things. Everything is at least double than the price of what you think. But I am interested in the Cochrane Minor Hockey proposal, and I've had multiple meetings with those individuals and their board, and they are quite keen on participating in some nature, and you've kind of highlighted some of those conversations, but perhaps, and I appreciate you highlighting that we can't just jump into a relationship, et cetera, but really where I was going originally with the notice of motion was, if this land is feasible for twinning of an arena, next step would be, and in my thought process was not to build a grandiose multi-use facility, although I think we should probably take a look at that if we're gonna build something. Rather, but in my brain, it's let's build functionality, which is closer to what I think the minor hockey proposal is suggesting, and leave the nice to haves and next steps to a larger facility on another piece of land that we're gonna probably have to acquire. So for me, this was always a stopgap to help kind of, I guess, relieve some of the pressure we're going to be feeling. I'm guessing that the study is going to show us that we need more ice, and this is a way to get there. So I like the idea. I think, I mean, I'm glad it's coming on the 8th and we can decide that, but I'm kind of leaning towards putting it in this budget next year. The next council can vote on it. But seeing a 2-year timeline to get something built, if we don't start now, those needs are even greater in 2 years. So this was just I guess, to repeat myself, a stopgap, council, to get us to more ice quicker so that we can then find a long-term solution on another location. But appreciate all the information tonight.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, so I do need some like clarity on that, because I know sitting on the Parks and Rec Committee and seeing that, and knowing that we are with the Parks, Recreation, Culture Master Plan, we're only 4 of 7 steps through that plan. And so I know I'm gonna be asked, how is this not queue jumping? Why is this not part of that list? Because I know, you know, like Cochrane, soccer presented to us on their soccer dome. Everybody wants to get to the front of the queue, and yeah, and I don't know how we're gonna answer the question of how not putting $200,000 on a feasibility study this budget isn't moving somebody to the front of the queue. So there's that consideration. Is I don't know how you can defend this as not putting one group over another. It would be different if we had finished the study and, you know, hockey was 1, 2, 3, and I know we safely assume baseball, soccer fields, and ice rinks are all going to be on there. We all know we're short of these, but anyway, somebody needs to answer that for me, because why wouldn't we finish the plan, the deliberate plan we've committed to, and get the true feedback from the community, so that we are, so the community is telling us what their priorities are, and then we feel that, as opposed to, I don't know how it's not jumping the queue, I guess.
I take it that's not, is that a comment or a question?
I don't know, if somebody wants to give me what their piece is, like, why would we move ahead with a decision to put $200,000 into a feasibility study on this site if we haven't delivered on our commitment to the community to do a Parks Recreation Culture master plan? So it's an awkward question for you, but you are the leader bringing this idea to us.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden. So this was prompted through the notice of motion to bring this forward, and so the suggestion of, yes, we do have a lot of the data behind the master plan and the list of what the priorities should look like for indoor and outdoor facilities. The library also lands at the very top for that high priority inside of that list, and this is a very similar type project, a planning project that we're doing for the library. So just trying to create some parallels for you to help understand like how some of these planning processes can work. But I do hear what you're saying around specific groups. That's why community engagement and doing like a deeper study, and so that we're actually understanding how is this impacting more than just one user group if we were to move forward with it.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, just add to that, I agree with what Michelle is sharing. I think the trade-off is simply is time associated with that and the compounding of the issues. Administration firmly stands behind the Parks and Rec and Culture Master Plan as laying out the roadmap for those priorities in a community-driven process that considers the comprehensive needs of the community in a way that we can set that in front of council as decision makers as the preferred method for these decisions to be made. But there is elements of time associated with that. I think I'm trying to think of the only kind of element as part of that. To be clear, that's not a recommendation or an advocacy for that approach. I think that is simply one piece that you might consider as part of that. But this is not going to be solved by any one project. I think that what we're all expecting to see, as you articulated, Councillor McFadden, is when the Arts and Culture and Rec Master Plan is brought back to us, is that there's a broad range of needs in our community that are all at critical levels in terms of required investment, and there's no one project that's going to alleviate that, and certainly not an expectation we have administratively. So the question then being is we're at least I would say three to 4 months away from the adoption of that master plan, and then whatever the next set of decisions make, which means I would say we're functionally 5 to 6 months away from the prioritization decisions being made about what projects come next and those investments being made. And that's really the only trade-off that I can think of versus having all that information at our disposal at that time.
Sure, but we're gonna get like $200,000 is a lot of money. So like $200,000, why are we not spending that on advancing the Horse Creek Sports Cart projects, faster? Why are we not spending $200,000 on any number of projects? So I think the big flag for me is not if hockey's at the top of the list and we have a chat as a council and balancing off the knowledge of that. That's great. That was why I was advocating for a Parks and Recreation, for a deliberate plan, so that we weren't making blind ad hoc decisions, which I don't know how I'm going to defend this in the public other than that. If we don't know the results of that study, if we're only just finishing up the second of 3 engagement levels with the master plan. Council hasn't looked at it. And I know following this conversation, I imagine the good residents of Cochrane Heights who are concerned about the effects of the football field will also have a say on this. So these are all flags for me why I prefer us to do it through a planning process than try to get it through in a response to a notice of motion. So those are my thoughts, and I think those are the kind of the questions that we're gonna have to be prepared to as a council to hear from. And I guess we'll see where we land next week. But again, my perspective, the reason I wanted and championed a deliberate master plan was so that we were being deliberate in our processes and knowing what we were choosing from. And in this case, we'll be doing it blind and spending $200,000 not knowing if there was something that the community valued higher. So, and it's tough for me to say, my kid plays hockey and we drive for him to play hockey. So I personally would benefit from this, but it's my role as a community advocate to look at the balanced needs of the community. So those are my thoughts on that one, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Nagel?
Yeah, my concern with the community master plan is I feel like we've just been kicking the can down the road to everything's gonna come down to the master plan. Here we are basically at the end of our term and we still kind of have our hands tied because we haven't finished this master plan. When did council make the decision to start on a master plan for recreation?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Nagel, we launched that project. I believe it was mid-year in 2024. So we do have I'm actually bringing forward the second, what we heard report from our last community engagement in the first week of November, and also what we've learned. So all of the data that you are asking about of where do the priorities land, that's also coming forward in November. And there is a draft of the full master plan happening right now. And I'm happy to share that list with you. Yeah, we reviewed it in June, but we're happy to share it again.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I don't need the list shared currently. I don't know if that's if you were suggesting right now. No, definitely.
It might just give you some more context to where the master plan process is at.
Okay.
We're quite a ways down the road.
Okay, and then just to better understand the facts of what we're dealing with here, what has come forward to us this evening is not enough detailed planning that we can actually start collecting development levies. Correct? This was like a very high level. Here's what it cost other communities. We are not able to collect development levies from.
Yeah,
this
perhaps I
research.
think I'll take that one,
Thank
Michelle,
you.
if that's okay, through the chair to Councillor Nagel. That's correct. I think that the feasibility study would be the level of detail that you would require to be able to comfortably include a project like this in the offsite levy program. So that is another element of time, again, that we're talking about here. As I shared previous to Councillor McFadden's comments, is we're really talking about the trade-off of time to process, and there's no right or wrong answer to that. There's comfort and there's trade-offs that you make as a decision maker. We all encounter those. And so in terms of the process, as I said, we're not that far away from the completion of a comprehensive recreation and culture and parks plan that I think will really help those decisions. But I also don't want to suggest that those decisions are going to immediately happen the minute that draft or adopted plan hits the desk. There's still a process then that goes through that. And so I'm suggesting we're probably functionally 6 months away from making those types of decisions if we don't augment the process or make alternative decisions in the meantime. That's not a value judgment on that. That's just a projection of when we would be making the decisions between investing in project A or project B and the timing of those.
Okay, and then one last question, just to make sure I know exactly what's going on here. This $150,000 to $200,000 study, that would be the next step to actually start being able to collect development levies for this. Is there a decision coming to council before the end of our term on that?
Yeah, so it is projected to be on next week's council meeting for a formal decision as to whether or not council would like to proceed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
So I do need clarity. I know recreation was recently added under the MJ to offsite levies. Does an indoor arena qualify for offsite levies? And outdoor parks as well, or what was the trade-off of lost track?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So the basic way to describe it is bricks and mortar creating indoor recreation space can be included. Anything else is not included. So trails or parks or sports fields, none of those are applicable under the current legislation.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
I don't see any other questions, but I have a couple comments myself. Thank you, Council, for all your comments and questions, because it's kind of made things a little bit clearer. So to be clear, the feasibility study is only looking at that one particular area, right? That's all it would be looking at is, okay. And
To the Deputy Mayor, we could choose that the feasibility study does a site assessment as well for various sites. However, the notice of motion asked us to look at the viability of this site, so that's why it was suggested that way.
Okay, and the rec master plan, from what I gathered through kind of back and forth, we're about a year probably through the longer vision of things coming together with the master plan, or shorter?
Council will see the drafted master plan before the end of the year.
Okay. So here's kind of my concern over voting on this next week, is that 200K, nothing to sneeze about. No, it's not 20 to 75 million. However, that bigger number needs to be taken into consideration of dealing with the budget overall. And I don't know how you vote for something that's $200,000 when I have no idea what the $20 to $75 million impact is on the budget, or what possibly has to get removed from the budget to look at that particular build. I think the best thing that I would suggest is to bring back the 200K ask during the budget process to see if it fits in with the long-term vision of new council members sitting around this table to discuss what that overall impact is as we go forward. Our 10-year capital plan is extraordinarily, it's high as it is, let alone adding on projects that, I mean, as much as I think everybody sitting around this table realizes that we're very short and we're falling behind in rec, but it's one of many projects that we're falling behind in. And I think that, to Councillor McFadden's point, to give this priority right now to vote on it might seem like we're spending $200,000 on a feasibility study that we can't even afford the end product if we wanted to, right? So why would I be spending $200,000? It just seems like a waste. That's just my 2 cents on it. Obviously, that decision will come next week, but I'll be interested to see where that conversation goes. Council, any other questions or comments? No? Thank you for the presentation. And now we are moving on to the 5D, the Strategic Services Update with Mr. Blanchette.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. It is my pleasure to bring you a section update from Strategic Services. In 2024, Strategic Services was created by drawing together corporate strategy, communications, and intergovernmental relations, which were previously part of the organizational strategy and culture section alongside human resources and health and safety. The change recognized that these 3 areas are most effective when they operate together, aligning our planning, our communication with residents, and our advocacy with other governments. This section supports Council's ability to make informed decisions, engage the community, and advance our strategic goals. Each of these areas have distinct responsibilities, but together they form the backbone of how we define, communicate, and advocate for Cochrane's priorities. Intergovernmental relations strengthens Cochrane's relationships with other governments and partners, helping to secure resources, shape policy, and ensure our community's priorities are heard and acted upon. Corporate communications ensures Cochrane has a consistent and trusted voice, keeping residents informed, engaging the community in meaningful ways, and supporting Council in sharing priorities clearly and effectively. Corporate strategy provides the tools and frameworks that help Council and administration set clear priorities, measure progress, and ensure that decisions are backed by evidence and sound asset management. You'll now hear updates from the business unit leaders, starting with Christine Raves, our Senior Advisor of Intergovernmental Relations. And I just would appreciate it if you could hold your questions until the end of the 3 presentations. Thank you. Christine?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and Council. Tonight, I will be giving an update on 3 areas critical to the intergovernmental portfolio. Starting with Council's advocacy priorities, or my roadmap. So with this dedicated intergovernmental relations role, I can focus specifically on advancing Council's advocacy priorities and providing updates on our progress. The first update will be provided to Council in writing within the next week. It is quite comprehensive and will include updates we look forward to sharing with the public on our website. One of the challenges in advancing priorities is the occasional shifts in provincial leadership or cabinet shuffles, because it means we often need to reestablish relationships, sometimes starting from the beginning. This can also be viewed as an opportunity, as it allows us to introduce Cochrane as it is now, and to continue putting Cochrane on the map. Looking ahead, following the upcoming election, Council will have an opportunity to review their priorities to ensure they remain aligned with our strategic plan, as well as the province's and federal government's focus areas. The second area I wanted to highlight is grant funding. We've had some success within strategic services, securing roughly $400,000 in external grants to advance local projects. This includes funding for the Alberta Community Partnership Grants, which makes up most of the $400,000. The challenge with grant funding is that grants are an increasingly competitive space, with municipalities across Alberta pursuing the same limited pools of funding, often for similar projects. We'll continue to target programs that are a good fit, while also looking at how to strengthen our internal grant coordination and capacity, including an organizational strategy or plan for grants, identifying where we should be spending our time and where we can see the most success. We'll also continue to work with regional partners and other advocacy organizations to improve competitiveness in joint funding applications or approaches to grant funding. This can help address some of the capacity and time challenges with respect to completed applications and reporting. An example of this is our application to the federal government's Active Transportation Fund for the trail project. While Cochrane submitted the application, the Cochrane Rotary Club was invaluable in helping us complete this application, and we received letters of support from neighboring municipalities. And the trail project itself is in partnership with the City of Calgary, Alberta Forestry and Parks, and Rotary. This application is for nearly $18 million. We haven't heard back yet. And the last area I wanted to highlight was Government of Alberta engagements. So we're currently active in 11 Government of Alberta engagement files, with 9 more anticipated before the end of the year. Council's advocacy priorities help us determine how we prioritize these requests and how we respond. Our advocacy work through Mid-Size Mayors Caucus and Alberta municipalities also provides an additional platform for influence. Sometimes we defer to these organizations to respond to the Government of Alberta, sometimes we send standalone feedback, and sometimes we do all three. The focus going forward will be to sustain these relationships and ensure our advocacy aligns with Council's direction to ensure Cochrane's voice is reflected in regulatory and policy changes. I will now pass this over to Ms. Hubrecht for an update on our communications.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Fedeco, Mayor Genung, and members of Council. I'm really pleased to be here with you tonight to share an overview on the Communications Department and highlight the value that we bring to both the organization and the community. Our team is a team of 6 creative professionals, and we have a clear purpose: to tell Cochrane's story and build community trust through transparent, strategic communications. Public engagement continues to be a key organizational priority, reflecting our commitment to building trust, fostering meaningful relationships, and supporting informed decision-making. In the spring of 2023, Council allocated funding for a dedicated public engagement resource. In 2024, Council reaffirmed their commitment to public engagement by adopting an updated public engagement policy, bringing more consistency, coordination, and outcome-focused engagement across the organization. This year, we are supporting 14 engagement initiatives, and we have over 2,500 residents registered to participate on our Let's Talk Cochrane site, a strong sign of growing interest and participation in our community. Through our public engagements, we're not just asking questions, we're helping residents to understand the why behind decisions, strengthening civic literacy and transparency. Looking ahead, we remain committed to building on this momentum and keeping public engagement at the heart of how we connect, inform, and involve our community. Another key initiative is expanding our digital communications channels. With Council's support in the 2024 budget, we developed a Cochrane app. This project was delivered on time and within the allocated budget, and launched in November of 2024, the app had 1,000 downloads in its first week, far surpassing our goal. Thanks to a strong marketing campaign, this number has grown to nearly 4,000 downloads, representing close to 25% of Cochrane households. The app offers quick access to key municipal information, news, service requests, events, and engagement opportunities all in one convenient place. It's also advancing our civic literacy by making information more accessible and timely, empowering residents to stay informed and engaged. Looking ahead, we're focused on enhancing the app and our website, as well as exploring new digital tools to stay connected with our community. Earlier, I spoke about our primary goal in communications, to tell Cochrane's story and build community trust through transparent and strategic communications. Achieving this goal requires ongoing reflection, adaptability, and innovation. As our organization continues to grow both in complexity and size, the need for thoughtful, coordinated communication grows alongside it. This presents a great opportunity to reflect on what's working well, where can we improve, and how can we continue to lead with transparency and impact. In 2025, I had the opportunity to complete a communications audit, looking for feedback internally, feedback from our team, and benchmarking with other municipalities. This provided a great opportunity to develop an updated strategy, which is in the process of being implemented to continue to refine our communications. Our website remains one of our most important communications tools, and in 2024 alone, it received over 500,000 visits, underscoring just how essential it is for keeping residents informed. But the website isn't static. It requires ongoing collaboration across all departments to ensure content is current, accurate, and accessible. Beyond the website, we're evolving our broader communication approach with clear priorities, measuring and evaluating the impact of our campaigns to ensure meaningful outcomes, expanding our use of tools and formats to reach wider and more diverse audiences, strengthening our social media presence with a consistent brand voice, investing in training and development to make sure our team is aligned with best practices, and exploring the responsible use of AI to boost efficiency and support content creation. I want to pause and just reflect that none of this would be possible without my fantastic team, a dedicated group of professionals who bring creativity, commitment, and collaboration to everything they do. Their passion and expertise are the driving force behind our progress. Communications is about more than simply sharing information. It's about making an impact. Together, we're focused on building trust in local government, increasing public understanding of municipal decision-making, and fostering a culture of continuous learning. We're proud of the progress we made and remain committed to delivering communications that truly makes a difference. Thanks for the opportunity to share an update on our department, and I'd now like to turn it over to Joyce Humphrey to provide an update on the Corporate Strategy Department.
Thanks, Kristen. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of Council. My name is Joyce Humphrey, and I'm the Manager of Corporate Strategy. It is my pleasure to present to Council for the first time tonight. Tonight, I'll provide an overview of the department, what it encompasses, the progress we've made, and what you can expect to see in the near future. Our department leads corporate-wide strategic planning and analysis. We focus on long-term organizational success by strengthening cross-departmental coordination and alignment. Since joining the town in May of 2025, I've been integrating into the organization and establishing foundational relationships. I've taken the time to listen, to learn about the different departments, appreciate the work being done, connect with the people behind it, and understand what matters most to the community of Cochrane. This foundation is essential for achieving long-term, sustained results. One important area is the asset management program. I want to thank Council for this work, for supporting this work by approving the budget for a dedicated resource. We're currently in the progress of recruiting an asset management professional. In the meantime, we've been building internal knowledge and exploring best practices through training. Over the next few months, we'll be concentrating on assessing the current state of assets and developing the asset management policy. As the program matures, asset management strategy will become more integrated into Council's discussions and budget decisions. Referring to the diagram, we're currently in the assess stage and progressing towards the planning stage. Beyond asset management, we're also advancing work in corporate accountability and transparency. This includes establishing a collaborative, structured goal planning framework to support organizational alignment. This framework will help the organization prioritize strategically, both vertically and horizontally within the organization, while ensuring alignment with council and the community. We'll also be leading the development of a corporate performance measurement systems, enabling departments to better track and report results. Council will see a shift towards more data-driven, outcome-focused reporting, providing clearer, more consistent, and simplified updates. A key part of this shift is embracing results-based accountability, measuring not just the outputs, but the impact of our programs and initiatives. This ensures that our work is meaningfully improving the well-being of our community. Thank you for your time this evening and for your support of corporate strategy. I will now turn it back over to Kevin.
Strategic services is about connection. Strategy defines the goals. Communication builds understanding, and intergovernmental ensures we have the right partnerships and resources available to us. You've just heard updates from each of the strategic services teams. Together, their work directly supports council strategic priorities and creates visible impact for our community. These updates show the early results of that integration, and we're excited to continue to build on this foundation. Before closing, I wanted to share our collective top priorities going forward. Number one is to advance targeted advocacy with provincial and federal partners on housing, wastewater upgrades, and growth-related infrastructure, positioning Cochrane as a collaborative and solutions-focused municipal leader. Two is to expand transparent, accessible communication with residents, utilizing enhanced engagement tools that connect community input directly to council decision-making. And last is our onboarding of the new manager of corporate strategy and position the role to drive organizational alignment through strong stakeholder relationships and performance reporting. And with that, I would welcome any questions or feedback.
Thank you for the presentation, and everybody did a great job, but congrats on a successful first presentation for you.
Good job,
I will look to council. Mayor Janang, you're up first.
Yeah, happy to go first. I've been looking forward to this report for a long time. And I just want to, maybe tonight is a bit of a, for me anyways, a look back and maybe celebrating some of the successes. And we don't have to go back very far in years to actually go to a time in this organization where none of those positions outside of yours, Kristen's, existed. Even you, Kevin, didn't exist in this organization. We have made leaps in this area. And I'm encouraged by the work and the presentations tonight. And I will tie in communications into my commentary here. But to start in the order in which you presented, the InterGov portfolio, obviously council and I work very closely with that. Just this past weekend, yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet for an hour with the Premier. Today, I was on a call with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, both supported by our InterGov office, which sets me up for success in putting Cochrane on the map, as you said, Christine. And I think, looking back, when that was off the sides and corners of desks, we did the best we could. I'm so proud that we have a dedicated portfolio now that is addressing those needs. And you've highlighted that very good tonight, and how, in a growing community, we have to identify ourselves to the province and be first at the trough. And that trough is limited, and we all know that. I could see everybody nodding. In communications, Kristen, I'm glad you pointed out the app. I'd forgotten about that. And that is something that most recently is addition to our portfolio of tools that we engage with the community, including the addition of an engagement personnel in your department. But recently at the Grand Avenue Village, I try to take every opportunity I can to promote the app across the community. And I was expecting to hear from the seniors that, oh, you have an app, and they actually all had it. So we're making, I think, great progress in that. And I'm encouraged by the future for it as we continue to build that out. The other one that I wanted to talk about, and I think we've done a great job increasing our engagement opportunities, but I think you've also done a good job in communications in finding our identity, our voice as a community. I can see, even by the style of your presentation tonight, we're starting to be confident in who we are as a community and speak that way. And I think that's important. I think we were really trying to find our footing for a few years, and I just congratulate your staff on, and you for paving that way. It's excellent. And Joyce, corporate strategy and asset management, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. Council's eager to hear the success of asset management is, I mean, we know that we need it, and we've been chomping at the bit to have it. But corporate strategy, and I'm just excited to hear how you're going to take this area of our organization into the future. But and Kevin, this has been a long time in the coming, and I'm just pleased that we're here and that we're having these conversations. It's a great report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, the mayor's kind of said it all. The thing I would add is, he's right, we have been talking about that asset management program, I think, for at least 2 terms. And so I think that will be an incredible tool for the new council coming in. And I look forward to being able to see that either as a member of council or as a community member, because I think it will be an incredible tool in terms of driving your 3 priorities forward. Thank you.
Looks like there's no other questions. I only had one, and I could be wrong. I thought we approved an asset manager in last year's budget.
To the deputy mayor, absolutely we did, and just with the changes within our section and reorganization of our section and bringing in a corporate strategy manager, that's who that position will be reporting to. So that has delayed it slightly, but we are going right into recruitment here in the next couple weeks, working with all of our colleagues to sort of identify that job profile to make sure we have the right fit for our organizational structure. So you'll be hearing more about that in the next couple of weeks, but you're correct.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And do you know how long that will take to, are you kind of predicting a 3-month, I guess just depending on candidates? Absolutely. But, I think 3 months is a reasonable window to get the right candidate in place. Okay. That's all I have. Any other questions around the table? Comments?
Thank you,
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I would now like to call Sean Toot, Director of Utilities, to the podium to begin his presentation. Oh, and this is a 5E Extended Producer Responsibility Update.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm here to introduce the Provincial Extended Producer Responsibility Program. This presentation was first put together by Shane Hovell as he was leading the Waste and Recycling Division. So thanks to Shane for getting this started. Since then, Fabricio, our manager of Waste and Recycling, moved on to a new opportunity. So I didn't get much of a chance to learn the ins and outs from him. I'll do my best to answer your questions today, but I may need to follow up on some details afterwards. Thanks for your patience as we work through the transition. Just to give Council a quick overview, Alberta's Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation came into effect on November 30th, 2022. And the systems officially went live on April 1st, 2025. I'm here with you today in September because we wrapped up our final agreement on July 16th, 2025. Right now, recycling for packaging and paper products, the things that go in your blue bin, is mostly paid for by taxpayers. And every community has had its own way of doing it. Local efforts have diverted a lot of waste, but the result has been a patchwork of systems across Alberta, which can be confusing. That's where the extended producer responsibility comes in. Instead of local governments and taxpayers footing the bill, the responsibility for collecting, sorting, processing, and recycling shifts to the producers. the companies that put the products and packaging on the market. They take ownership of those materials at the end of their life. The big advantage here is that Alberta moves to one clear province-wide system, which not only makes it simpler, but also creates economies of scale in how materials are managed. Alberta's new EPR systems will initially focus on residential single-use products, packaging and paper products, and hazardous and special products. It's important to highlight that Cochrane residents won't see any operational changes right now as a result of the EPR program. Because Cochrane already had a mature recycling program, I should change my slide. Sorry, let me start again. Because Cochrane already had mature recycling programs in place, we needed to put 4 separate extended producer responsibility contracts in place to cover everything our community recycles. The first is with circular materials for our Blue Bin program. That's all of the recyclables collected curbside. The second is also with circular materials, but this one covers recyclables dropped off at the Eco Center. Call to Recycle manages the battery stream that comes into the Eco Center. And finally, we have an agreement with Product Care for hazardous and special waste materials received at the Eco Center. Each of these contracts had to be negotiated individually, so they don't all look the same. They have different funding rates and contract lengths. Okay. As mentioned previously, the Extended Producer Responsibility Program shifts the financial responsibility for our 4 recycling streams from Cochrane to the producers of these items, which provides us the opportunity to reallocate the funding that would otherwise have been utilized to support these programs. In your council report, Shane provided a detailed breakdown of the individual contract financials and details. So what you're seeing in the chart above is a consolidated financial summary of all 4 contracts. For instance, if we look at 2025, to offset our costs to provide the recycling services, which are now the fiscal responsibility of producers, we will be receiving $938,687 from the Provincial Extended Producer Responsibility Program. As I stated before, each of the recycling streams has its own contracts, and they vary in length, with the shortest being just 15 months away. You'll also note that the confirmed contract values are reducing over time, and the provincial EPR contractors have indicated that we can expect this trend to continue. Essentially, what I'm saying is please don't consider the Extended Producer Responsibility Program to be a consistent funding source over time. We are now receiving the Extended Producer Responsibility funding per the agreements. These funds will be initially allocated to surplus, awaiting council's deliberation and direction following administration's annual year-end surplus presentation. Okay. In closing, as we move into budget deliberations, administration will be bringing forward recommendations on how to allocate the funds received through our extended producer responsibility agreements. Because each of our contracts was negotiated separately, they come with different funding levels and terms. This gives us an opportunity, but also requires thoughtful planning to make sure those dollars are used in a way that supports long-term sustainability and service delivery. Our recommendations will focus on ensuring that EPR funding is directed towards offsetting recycling program costs that were previously borne by taxpayers. Any surplus is strategically reinvested to strengthen Cochrane's waste and recycling services, including infrastructure and education that align with community priorities. We maintain flexibility to adapt as the province-wide system evolves, recognizing that contract durations differ and future adjustments may be needed. In short, these deliberations give Council the chance to turn EPR funding into real benefit for Cochrane residents. This concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions or comments Council wishes to share.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm looking around the table. I don't see anybody else's light on, but, oh, there we go. Mayor Janot.
Great news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, I was just gonna echo that. I remember when we first talked about the extended producer project probably about 5 years ago. It was brought forward by one of the City of Calgary councillors. And so I guess my only question, because I did notice, you said the one contract was only good for like 15 months. But as a kind of a bare minimum, we're looking at an extra $1 million in revenue towards that. Is your thought at this point that revenue would stay utility focused? Or do you have any recommendations for that?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McFadden, yes. The correct path for those funds would be to stay with the waste and recycling utility.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Thank
correct
you.
path. Thanks.
Almost got the other one.
In Mr. Chu's completely unbiased opinion, the $1 million should stay with the utility system.
Thank you.
I only have one question. I think it was 26 and 27, the Eco Center it was unknown. I think it said unknown, like the return. I was just curious as to why it would have been unknown. It was on one of your slides.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, could you direct me to that? Two back, okay.
Yeah, so the PPP Eco Center, I was just curious why those two were, or 27, 28, sorry, I just got the years wrong.
That's because those contracts have expired, so we'll have to renegotiate them.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that explanation. Well, it looks like you are off the hook. No other questions, so I think you were good.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
nice evening.
Well, Council, that concludes our business section of the agenda. We do have one closed session item, 6A, so I am looking for a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Wilson, all in favor? Voted unanimously.
Deputy Mayor, if I may suggest we can just retire to